Summon Sign is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 82 of Summon Sign, Last Stand Media's weekly in-depth gaming discussion podcast. I'm your host, as always, Brad Ellis. Forgive the mild brain freeze right there. Got two special guests with me, two overqualified guests for this show. First, we're going to start with good old Mr. Rick Hoeg. Hoeg, how are you?
I'm feeling good and old, so I'm ready to go.
Nice. Yeah, we're all getting there. It's just the way it goes. Also, special guest, Rhys Elliott of Alinea Analytics. You may have heard him on Sacred Symbols Plus a couple weeks ago with Colin, talking all about the industry and sales and all that kind of stuff. Rhys, I heard you on the show, and I was like, hey, this guy really knows his video games. Not only does he know the numbers and all that kind of stuff, he's clearly a passionate gamer. He loves video games. So I was like, we got to get this guy on the show. But Rhys, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Yeah, I am very obsessed with games, but yeah, I had a blast on the show with Colin. And also I just wanted to say to the LSM community, thank you so much for all the nice comments and everything like that. Like, I mean, some of you threw a bit of shade on my Welsh accent, but that's to be expected. But in general, like, everybody gave me such a warm welcome. Like, a lot of you, like, you know, friend requested me on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and just said some really lovely things. So yeah, thank you so much, you guys.
That is nice. That's strangely wholesome for our group. I would have expected like some more perverted comments or something like that. But
maybe after this one.
Yeah, maybe after this one. That's nice to hear, though. Rick, man, I was talking to you before the show. We were talking about your daughters being into gaming and stuff like that. And I was kind of curious, what's the breakdown of them playing games with you? Because it seems like when you talk about games a lot, your daughters are involved in it, watching you. And I was talking to you a little bit about it, and you said they mostly just watch you play games right now.
They do.
They play any themselves?
Yes, they do play games themselves. They absolutely love Stardew Valley and the farming type games. They play a ton of those. In fact, they play them together. When they added co-op to that game, that was a big day in the Hoeg house.
Oh, yeah.
But my daughters mostly like to sit behind me and make snide comments about whatever I'm failing at in video games to each other, which is great. You want to see that from your kids. You want to see that from siblings. They are teenagers, so I do anything I can to get them out of their rooms and hanging out with me. And as it turns out, having been basically ensconced in the world of video games from their birth, they have taken to them, or at least can see things about them that they like. So when they're not playing Stardew Valley or other cozy games, they're watching me play Death Stranding, or more recently, they're watching me play Donkey Kong Bananza. And they have all these thoughts about what I'm doing and what I'm doing wrong. And in between bouts of me doing things wrong in Donkey Kong, we play really, really long Japanese anime-based visual novels, like the 100-Line Last Defense Academy, which is the favorite here in Hoeg House. We are, my Switch tells me, 120 hours in, and not really very close to finishing that up, but it continues to surprise and delight throughout its entire runtime, and my girls continue to ask for it. So as long as that keeps happening, we're going to keep playing it. Yeah. I have no idea when the end of this thing is, but it is a long way off.
Does your wife play or watch any of the games?
My wife doesn't watch me play console games for the most part. Basically, my spaces are not in a place where she often is transiting. But she does play games on her own. She loves the 2 Point series of building businesses. Awesome. So she loves 2 Point Hospital. She loves 2 Point Campus. And her favorite, and in my opinion, the best game design so far, is 2 Point Museum, which just had an expansion this last week. Actually, when it was Donkey Kong Day in our house, it was also 2 Point Museum expansion day.
Big day then for the family.
So yes, big day for the family. And she made sure before I got too comfortable playing with Donkey Kong that I had purchased the expansion on Steam so that she could get, I believe it's called Fantasy Finds. So it was like putting dragons and magical artifacts in your museum. She was super excited about that. And yeah, we're a household of gamers. And I blame myself for the most part there.
Yeah, that's funny. You're talking about your daughters kind of making comments about your gameplay and stuff like that. Are you the parent that the kids make fun of the most, would you say?
I think I'm the parent that, because I'm doing that kind of fun stuff more around them. They feel more comfortable making fun.
Okay.
But I'm also kind of in charge of disciplinary activities here at the house, so not too much fun necessarily.
Yeah.
It's all in good fun. It's all
of
just
course.
light ribbing.
Yeah, I mean, like, my mom was like that for me and my brother. She was, I don't know, she grew up surrounded by boys, so maybe that's why. We definitely made fun of her way more than my dad.
Well, the interesting thing about my girls and raising kids in general is it was very recent that I was still teaching them how to play and use 2 joysticks at once. That seems to be the skill that is the most difficult to kind of convey to someone, is moving the camera apart from your character. And I think it was when Astrobot came out that I handed my controller to my youngest, and she just blew past me. She just handled a challenge that I was having trouble with, like nobody's business, no issue at all, and then proceeded to show me for the next couple of hours exactly how good she had become at action games, which I really hadn't noted as part of this. And she's just much better at me at video games right now, and that's weird. So I don't let her play too much of the things that I'm playing at the same time that I'm playing them. But
yeah,
it's impressive.
Yeah, dude, I have a similar thing. So my nephew now, he's 13. I live in near Amsterdam, but I'm originally from Wales. My family still lives in Wales. So I go back every 6 months or so. And every time I go back, my nephew gets like a little bit better at games. Yeah. The last time I went back, he just completely passed me. Like he's like nailing me on Fortnite. And I like downloaded Halo because he has an Xbox Series X, downloaded Halo Infinite, wanted to like humble him a little bit. He like after 2 matches, he managed to like beat me one-on-one in Halo, and I was like, that's it, that's game over for me, no more. Like, they just pick it up so quickly.
Yeah, it's that speed of understanding that is just crazy.
Yeah, as we get older, we always get surpassed by the younger ones. It's just the way it goes.
It is.
You got to find some game to beat him and keep him in line, at least as long as you can in one thing.
Yeah, that's the plan. Tony Hawk's, I don't think he'll ever get better than me at that because he has no love to play it. So I think I'll always have that
one. All right. Before we get in the show, everybody, please check us out on patreon.com/laststatement if you'd like to support us and get early access to this show, as well as all of our other shows on the network, like Defining Duke, which Hoeg was on pretty recently on a very long episode, but very well-received episode. I had a lot of people writing about it.
I don't know if I conveyed this on this network here at LSM, but that show, I loved it, and thank you so much for all the kind comments, everybody, but that knocked me out for like a day or more.
Yeah. Well, it's because you probably went and you didn't expect 5 hours. Like, who does?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. It was the 4th hour where I had evening plans, where I was getting calls about these things, and they were asking where I am. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to make it because I'm looking at the rundown that Maddie had provided. Like, we're not particularly close to being done. And I was canceling those plans. I was like, I really did not anticipate having to get into my evening calendar items for this. But I had a great time. It was a lot of fun. I think it was a great conversation, which is what I really appreciate about this network and the people that are on it. But yeah, it is no hyperbole to say that I was basically in a brain fog / coma for the next couple of days after that.
Sure. Yeah. It can be a lot sometimes out of nowhere. But that's just the way it goes over here on this network. Sometimes some shows go pretty long.
I'm scared.
We won't go that long. No way. Not on this show. I usually keep this show pretty tight. It depends who's on the show there and what game we're talking about. Like, I had one that was just me and Colin, and I think we went 4.5 hours, just the two of us one time. So it's pretty rare. I usually like to keep it around 2.5, 3 hours, maybe a little more. I don't want to be all day kind of thing, though.
It is funny because when I told my wife I was doing Summonsign this week, she goes, "Is that no? That was Defining Duke." I was like, "No, Brad usually runs a tight ship. Like, I can pretty much predict when I'm going to come out of my office after."
Yeah, I guess it's the tightest ship on the network, I would say, to an extent. It's still a long ass show compared to many podcasts I've been on in the past, but it's one of the shorter ones, I would say. But like I said, it just depends on the weekend. If there's any tangents or whatever, it just happens. All right, boys. Donkey Kong Bananza is out. I finished the game yesterday, actually.
Wow.
I'm curious, Rhys, we're going to start with you because I'm not sure how deep you are into the game. Tell me about Donkey Kong Bananza. Wait, first of all, history with Donkey Kong. Is there any there? Then we'll talk
There
about the
is.
main game. There is. Okay, give me the
Yeah,
rundown.
there is. So I love the Donkey Kong Country series
Okay,
as a
good.
wee boy on the Super Nintendo, but I went back to it like about 3 months ago just to kind of prepare myself for this, and didn't enjoy it as much as I did when I was a kid. Like the nostalgia, like got me through a lot of it. You know, the music, the visuals, because yeah, the visuals are insane, especially for back then, but even now. But I just found the platforming too floaty, the checkpoints not very forgiving, and just it just didn't play as smoothly as, you know, the games that I play today. I mean, I just finished Mario Wonder again like last month, so probably had a lot to do with it. But yeah, really big history with the franchise. Even loved DK64 back in the day. I mean, I was like 9 years old, and it's just like a collectathon, and my, you know, young plastic brain was like well up for that back then. But no, like I have a lot of affinity for the franchise.
Cool.
And yeah, like I think I don't know. I'm only 20 hours in, so I don't really want to completely say this, but I think it's the best Donkey Kong game I've ever played. Honestly, it's so good. It's so good. Like, do we? Yeah, I mean, like I can just talk about the game a little bit. They've like completely reinvented Donkey Kong. Like, it's probably one of the most technically impressive games from Nintendo since Breath of the Wild, I would say, and really is a technical showcase for what the Switch 2 can do. And the new gameplay hook, obviously, is the deformation stuff, which is like super smart, super satisfying. You know, you can destroy the environment in pretty much any way you want. There are a few constraints in that some materials can't be destroyed, like metals and things like that. So there are some guardrails for the sandbox, but it works really well. Like it's really fun, like really therapeutic. I don't know if you've played Power Wash Simulator or Teardown, but it's very much cut from the same cloth as that. Like even in the first two levels, I wasn't really doing many of the objectives. I was just like destroying the whole like environment and just really trying to like see what they've done like with the physics system, because it's not very physics based, right? The you know, destruction, it's all very like static. But yeah, it feels so good to play. Like it's very systems driven. It's a very smart evolution of the 3D platformer formula, because this is the Odyssey team, and you can really see that DNA pretty much instantly, right? But it does break away as well in some like really bold directions. Like, how can I explain it? It's like Donkey Kong's not really just a character like navigating the level. You're really like shaping the level around you to navigate the environment in a similar way to Tears of the Kingdom. And you can just see that those kind of design school techniques are just kind of really being passed up and through Nintendo across different franchises, different teams. And yeah, that's a lot of that institutional knowledge that just stays and really just like benefits the whole company. And yeah, fucking love to see it, right? It's so fun.
Hoeg.
Yeah.
First of all, you're an old guy like me. Donkey Kong. Give me the history.
Sure. I think I've probably played every Donkey Kong game, including Junior and some of the versus Marios and things like that. I agree with Rhys on this point, which is that I really came into liking Donkey Kong as a character with the Donkey Kong Country series, which was an absolute sea change in graphics at the Super Nintendo level. You look at them now, maybe they aren't quite as impressive, although I still think they jump off the screen if you're just looking at your Super Nintendo emulators and you play Donkey Kong Country after some of the other things that were contemporaries to that game. But that also set the tone for what I expect from a Donkey Kong game. So the jungle beats, the kind of jungle critters, the Rambies of the world and things like that. And while those are present in part in Bananza, one of the things that really jumped off the screen for me when I started playing it the other day was that it's a wildly different tone, right? They aren't going for that kind of Donkey Kong Country feel, even though they have a lot of Donkey Kong Country references in this game. They're instead going for something that's a lot closer to Odyssey, which itself was a little bit weird for a Mario kind of tone, but I think fit in, at least at the outset, a little bit better for Mario than it does for Donkey Kong. So when I started playing this game, I think internally I rejected some of what they were going for. It's very garish. It's got a lot of neon lights. The colors clash pretty significantly across at least the first few, what they call levels of the game. And it didn't really work for me. And I was looking to have it connect because it got all these great reviews in all these various places. And I was excited about the Nintendo Direct that had the long form kind of breakdown of what this game was, the one where they showed that Pauline was in the game, and I don't think that's a spoiler at this point.
No.
But if anybody wants to flag me
She's
for
on
that
the
in the
box.
comments, let me know.
She's on the box.
She's on the box. There you go. That's the rule. So without getting too deep into it, I was searching for a connection that these other reviewers had with this game while I played through the first little while. So I had been on social media. I was tweeting out essentially that I think I did 114 bananas on day one with my girls, and I was enjoying it. It's good. You can see some of the stuff that Nintendo was doing, just like Rhys said, but I wasn't in that great category just yet. And that really persisted up until our gaming session last night. And what happened last night is we got to basically the end game, give or take. I'm sure they have a few more tricks up their sleeves. But we got to basically the end game, and they had a resource gate. You had to go find some things around the world in order to actually pay these people the gold that they wanted. And so usually when this happens in a game, I say, oh, well, that's kind of lame. You're just extending your time scheme for this game. But it doesn't matter to me so much. We'll go back to previous layers. We'll run around a little bit. And it was during that session that I really started to enjoy the game, and it clicked with me a lot more, right? So I was, I guess, beelining it a little bit and getting kind of bored with the constant shrines and things and puzzles and challenges that you had to do. But freed from that, free from kind of this directed activity towards the planet core and being sent back to just go gather things, it really jumps out how much just running around, blowing mountains up, whatever it is that you're going to do, all have this feel of, as I described to my daughters yesterday, of a Sonic the Hedgehog casino level. Like things are constantly flying out. They're constantly going into your inventory. You're bashing things with your big Donkey Kong fists. And then you're going into a shrine because you want to experience these things. You're on your own time frame. And that's when it really clicked for me. So as it stands right now, I really love Donkey Kong Bananza, but there was a big section of time where it wasn't working for me. And part of that was what Rhys also identified, which is that the physics are not physics. The destruction is like a Minecraft level where you take out the bottom of the tree and the top of the tree hovers in midair. And that took away a little bit of something for me in what is supposed to be this kind of destruction power fantasy that you're enjoying blowing all this stuff up. When it's voxels and you're just cutting like punch marks in holes in the mountain, it's not as exciting to me. But all these design elements together wound up working, especially when you don't have any of this forward progression kind of push towards the end of the game. And people blame me for this. I'm in a different Discord where people are like, well, were you beelining this game? I'm like, not intentionally, but if you're going to have a game where you get more powers, and this isn't a Metroidvania, but there are powers that you gain for your character. Mm-hmm. If you've got those slots in your skill tree that aren't yet filled out, and I can see there's more powers to be earned, and they're going to be locomotion or other powers that are going to help me through the gameplay experience, I'm going to push until I can fill out that tree. I'm going to push until I have availability of all the powers, because I don't want to get into a situation where you've built a challenge room or you've asked me to do something where it's clear that I should be the ostrich or it's clear that I should be doing something else. I want to have all those powers. And so I definitely pushed at least that far, which is pretty close to the end, before coming back and having the more sandbox experience that I think is working better for a lot of people, and that honestly is where the game is at its best.
Yeah, I would not recommend rushing through this game necessarily very quickly. It's all about kind of just smelling the roses and exploring everything.
This is not how I'm wired, Brad.
Yeah, I know. It's how your brain is wired, I think, is the wrong way to play the game. But you just play the game how you want to play the game. But that's not how I'd recommend approaching this game.
No, I think that's right. And I think people reject the phrase, you're playing it wrong. But this is one of the only times in my life where when I got to that section and I was doing this and I was having much more fun, where I looked back at my experience and said, I was playing it wrong. Like I was absolutely 100% playing this game in a way that was not maximizing the fun to be had from it. And I can sit here and admit that. But I mean, at some level, I do say the design is such that I'm going to go after those powers. These are the reasons why it led to this kind of approach.
Yeah, I got you.
But that's on me. And so that's fine. I want to sit here and admit that so that I can say, yes, it is really great. I don't always love the tone of the levels. They are not what you are going to expect from a Donkey Kong Country kind of perspective. They are weirder. They're more Odyssey-like. But it's a fun time. It's a good game. And I'm glad to have bought it and to have played it.
What's the kind of tone you were chasing for this then? It is a little different than past Donkey Kong games, but I would say Donkey Kong kind of reinvents himself every now and then.
Well, every decade or so, right? They don't bring them out.
Well, we
too
get
often.
a game maybe a decade if we're lucky.
Yeah, no, I think the Donkey Kong Country was a reinvention of its own. And then it kind of wound up taking over the zeitgeist, or at least my personal zeitgeist, because of how popular it was and because of the long distance between these games. And so I think you're right that Nintendo did not anticipate or want Donkey Kong to just be running around the jungle, getting pig checkpoints and doing all these various other things that I think about.
Yeah.
But this was perhaps one notch more kind of esoteric and weird than I was ready for. So it asked me to join them there on what amounts to the dark side of the moon levels of Mario Odyssey, and it took me a beat to get there.
Yeah, sure. I get it. Yeah, the tone is very different, and the kind of creatures and stuff you run into, little rock boys rolling around, zebras.
At no point had I anticipated Donkey Kong making a lot of friends with sentient rock people underground. Like, that's just not in my head. Of course, that's a Donkey Kong story.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true, but I think it's necessary as well. Like the bongos jungle Donkey Kong that we all like grew up loving and enjoying. It didn't turn the needle, right? Like Donkey Kong has always played second fiddle to Mario and hasn't really had its own identity beyond like the whole jungle stuff. But this, I think, while there are like a lot of similarities to Mario Odyssey, and especially the end game in Mario Odyssey when it went a little bit off the rails, I think this was a necessary reinvention for Donkey Kong, right? Because arguably Donkey Kong Country was like the last iteration on like the character model of Donkey Kong and what we know Donkey Kong as today. But this was like a complete overhaul of the character. And I think if they'd just overhauled the character and thrown him in the same old world, it wouldn't have had that same impact. And it wouldn't have had the critical acclaim that it's had now, right? They needed to do something different because something in the Donkey Kong formula hasn't worked. Like personally, I think the rarefication of Donkey Kong was terrible for both Donkey Kong and Rare, right? Like Rare were like they had Banjo-Tooie, Banjo-Kazooie before that, and then Donkey Kong 64 adhere into that kind of rarefication of Donkey Kong that they put forward, honestly, like really kind of shot them in the foot and like kind of threw them off that momentum that they had with those Banjo games. And the character really hasn't come back since then. Of course, it was Donkey Konga and Jungle Beat where you had the bongos, and then it was the Wii U game and then the remake of the Wii U game. So arguably Donkey Kong really hasn't had room to, spread his wings or beat his chest, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
But now with this like new version, I think this really is like Donkey Kong's like, Super Mario World moment almost. And it's really well timed, right? Because you have the transmedia stuff with the Donkey Kong Country in the theme parks. You have the Donkey Kong movie come in, like, in the Super Mario movie, Donkey Kong was a lot more expressive, and this is like that coming out party, I think, for Donkey Kong. And had they really kind of retraced a lot of those same steps, I don't think it would have had the same impact. So I do agree with you, Hoeg. Like, I would have liked more, perhaps, of a transition instead of just boom, this is it, neon lights, crazy Sonic Casino level. But I know I can see why they did it. I just wish they'd done it with a little bit more nuance, perhaps.
Yeah, no, and it's not a fully fledged, fully formed complaint from me. It's just I'm just reacting to my internalization of what isn't working about this. And that's not the tone that I think of as a Donkey Kong game. And you are right that Donkey Kong has reinvented itself multiple times. And we're far away from 2D barrel throwing on pink girders. But I just wasn't anticipating this, and it is weirder. Like I can't express how weird this game gets in its back half. So it is weirder than I was expecting, and yet you're absolutely right on the game design elements and this destructibility being built into basically everything that you're doing throughout the game. One of the things that Nintendo does fantastically well, and that I always appreciate about them, is that they'll take this notion, what is our hook? What are we doing weirdly? Whether it's Cappy in Super Mario Odyssey or basically every 3 levels, a new thing in Super Mario Galaxy. And how are we going to use that in an interesting way and keep that kind of surprise moment going for people? And Donkey Kong Bananza does it great. Like, you think in the first couple of layers, I've seen basically everything. I get it. I can punch anything. I can surf on the turf, whatever it is that I'm doing. And then every layer that you go to is like, okay, but what if it also did this? And what if the enemies reacted this way to doing that? And what does that mean for what your tool set can do here? And Nintendo is great at that. And that's one of the things that makes this game as enjoyable as it is.
Yeah. Rhys, what do you think about like the whole mechanic around the game of digging and destruction like that? Think it works and is fitting for Donkey Kong?
Yeah, I mean, it suits the character very well, and I think they needed something to differentiate this game from the Mario games, right? Otherwise, it's just a reskinned Mario game. And they've even done that with the powers, right? Like the ostrich transformation and the zebra. Sorry, I'm forgetting my heritage over here. But like you can almost like imagine that they wanted those to be power ups, but they kind of did the more like cameo style. A cameo, that's a deep cut, like a Majora's Mask kind of style where you can actually like choose to transform. And I think that's actually at the detriment of the game because, like in a lot of the challenge levels, the underground things of the shrine equivalents, basically, they're way too easy because you can just transform into an ostrich and fly over everything if you want. I think had they gone with like the Mario Sunshine, like taking FLUDD away kind of thing for the platforming levels, like for the shrines taking away your powers, or for the shrines where they want you to use the ostrich, just give you the ostrich. I think that would have worked a lot better in terms of just, yeah, you have less control as a player, but then I prefer that linearity in terms of level design for shrines anyway. Open world, I'm happy to be as destructive and as open as you like, but not for the shrines. But yeah, to answer your question, I think the digging is, number one, it's a good mechanic for Donkey Kong and how crazy and chaotic he is, but also it's a good delineation from the Mario platformers, especially as this is the Mario Odyssey team as well, right? They really want to kind of split these into two different franchises now in some way.
Yeah, I agree. Like just beating the shit out of everything makes total sense for Donkey Kong, and I think it works so well. And it's crazy how satisfying it is throughout the entire game. Just being able to destroy anything. I was constantly amazed by it and like impressed about the kind of stuff you can just do and the creativity that comes with it, like solving a puzzle or something like that. Just being able to dig underground or something to pop up the other side is not something I expected in a Donkey Kong game, I gotta say. It wasn't something I thought I needed until I saw it, pretty much. Or I was like, wow, I would never have thought to do that with Donkey Kong, but it worked super well.
I think that's right.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that jumps out, and I have had this thought while I was playing Bonanza, is that it isn't a reskin Mario game, that Mario wouldn't fit with this dynamic, and that Donkey Kong is perfect for this. And one of the things, if I were an interviewer, I would ask is like, which came first? I'm making a Donkey Kong game, or I've got this digging that I can do with my engine, because it really does feel like they go so perfectly together. And I say this as somebody that is in large agreement with Rhys that there are parts of this game that I think are not as strong as they could have been because of this Nintendo ethos that you see at least since Breath of the Wild, if not before, of going with kind of organic puzzle solving, of letting you do whatever you want in these various spaces. And it's not my favorite thing in the world, right? This comes up a little bit more in Tears of the Kingdom, which has the full physics engine, where I don't like a puzzle. I don't like a challenge that essentially has, I have solved it intellectually, but you still have to depend on the engine to properly put that pinball in the hole when you try to glue your pinball flipper to the bottom. There are elements of Donkey Kong Bonanza that are similar to that, which is I got to carve out this thing and hope the things fall in the right way, or I got to fly in this particular way and hope that I cling to the wall the right way. All these things are not my favorite bits of the current Nintendo model, but I think they work a lot better for other people that are not me and maybe younger people. You see a lot of the Minecraft type audience say this is a lot of cool stuff in here, and I yield the floor to them. I'm the old brass on this question, but it's not my favorite thing that Nintendo does right now, even though I do like the openness of the decision space.
So you don't like the physics-based part of the puzzles and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't think that physics engines in general in video games have gotten to a place where you get a smooth and definitive enough response to something like a puzzle that it feels satisfying. It always feels like I'm struggling against it. It always feels like, okay, I have solved the contours of what you want me to do here, and now I'm dependent on that ice cube not hitting this tiny little part that you think is there that's going to throw it off and not land in the bucket that I need it to land in, or what have you. It's just not my favorite thing in the world.
Do you like Portal?
I like Portal enough. I don't tend to love the humor in those games, but I like the concepts there. And I think Portal for the most part, has puzzles that you solve in the way that I like. The one that I usually go and use as an explanation against the kind of Nintendo organic puzzle solving philosophy is Talos Principle, which is one of my favorite puzzle games of all time. And
that's the laser puzzles, right?
That is very rigid of like A, then B, then C, then D, and then you will have solved the puzzle. We can still have interesting, like think outside the box elements of that, but it's going to be such that you aren't trying to race the door closed. You aren't trying to get around the puzzle in some way. You're not trying to fly over the level with an ostrich. You've got to put it on this podium, and then that'll make sense for this podium, and the lasers will do this, and you'll feel like a genius. Good for you, but it'll be very specific how this puzzle was solved. And not everybody's going to agree with me on that, but that's what I'm looking for out of those experiences.
Okay. I got you. Yeah, I like both. Like, I like some very kind of like linear puzzles and solving it, I suppose, how you're saying like that. But I also just like when you like do a puzzle and you're like, I don't know if that was right, but I solved it. And I think that's always so fun. I like that in Portal. Like that happened to me a lot in Portal and stuff like that too. Where you're like, well, I don't know if that was the intended method, but I got past it. So that's cool.
Yeah, I think people do like that. I think for me, I just wind up always having this niggling issue in my brain that's like, okay, I think I broke it in some way that's not anticipated. And I don't like that feeling. I have no idea what that says about me. I'm sure there's a psychologist that can chime in, but I don't like that feeling. I want to feel like it's a curated experience and I'm going about things the right way.
You need structure, I guess.
Yes, and then I have passed this challenge and I can now move on to the next rather than I might have broken it, not caught a lesson that they were trying to teach me or what have you. And yes, that's probably the lawyer in me or the analytical person in me or whatever you want to frame it as.
Yeah.
But I don't like that feeling. So
Okay. I'll just say quickly, I guess I haven't given my just quick impressions of the game. I have finished the main campaign or whatever, and the game was excellent. I don't know. I guess this kind of leads into this question right here. Let me read this real quick. This is from Monkey D. Luffy. Hi, you summoners. Do you think Donkey Kong deserves the hype it's getting, including a 10 out of 10 by IGN? Is it on the level as the other big hits of this year or of the year in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Expedition 33, and Death Stranding 2? Thank you, and excuse me while I jump into a tar pit in honor of Sam.
That's right. You got to listen to Tom, man.
Yeah. No, this is definitely something that happens for sure. Is a game gets reviews, like for instance, like getting 10s and stuff like that. People play the game. They're like, it's not a 10. It doesn't reach that level. And I think a number can build up certain expectations in someone's mind of what a game should be, because that can mean something different to everybody. Hoeg, is this something you ran into with this game? Because you were kind of off-put by a lot of it at the start, at least.
As I gave you my little roadmap through my journey on Bananza, yes, there were definitely large points in time where I said, this is not that, right? It feels like a nice 7 or 8, not a 10. It is not going to finish, in my experience, at the end of this list, although I haven't beaten the game yet. So I know a number of people have said that the ending is strong. I look forward to checking that out soon as I get past my resource gates. But right now, as it stands, without having finished it, it's not in my top 5 of the year. But when you talk about a 10 out of 10, I usually see it as genre defying or changing in some way. And I do think this does that, right? I don't know that it's perfect at it. In fact, I think it's not. But I do think that this is a new way of experiencing 3D platformers in a way that like Astrobot was not. Right. And I keep comparing it to Astrobot because I love Astrobot. And I think large portions of the time I spent playing Astrobot versus Donkey Kong Bananza, I enjoyed Astrobot more. It's a very precise game. It demands very specific things of you in the challenge levels and whatnot. And Donkey Kong Bananza is a messier game. It's a more organic game. And that's not necessarily what I'm looking for in my experience. But the digging, the use of the textures, the use of the materials, everything else that goes into this game, I think is worthy of saying this is a kind of Mario 64 genre-changing type game. So I understand how you can get to 10 out of 10. It's not a 10 out of 10 to me.
What do you think, Rhys?
Yeah, I'm very much kind of like in the same boat, to be honest. Like it feels like the start of something rather than like an iteration, to be honest, which is, I think, where a lot of people are coming at it. Like they're comparing it a lot to Odyssey, right? Whereas Bananza is a little bit more experimental, like less curated, like we've said. It's, whereas Odyssey is more like of a tighter feedback loop between the like mechanical novelty and the reward design. Bananza is like it trades that like polish for more like possibility, right? Like the whole world is destructible. It's not always elegant, but it's more emergent, especially in the open world. I guess just in the open world, honestly. And I think it's a great foundation for like prior games, coming games to kind of iterate on in the Donkey Kong franchise and beyond. And like I guess from like a systems design lens, Bananza is more Nintendo testing how far they can really go with this like decentralized, like authored platforming in favor for this more like reactive world manipulation that they have in things like Breath of the Wild and then even more Tears of the Kingdom. And they even kind of experimented with it a little bit in Bowser's Fury when they re-released Mario 3D World. And it's not quite like a systemic sandbox, but it's the closest thing we'll get to in a 3D platformer from Nintendo right now. It's exciting, but it also means that the game does suffer from like frankly underdeveloped, like niche nascent mechanics. And there is, like Hoeg was getting at, there's some kind of like lack of synergy between some of these ideas because it is so kind of like new. And like, there's like branching paths that like disappear after one use and like transformations that, I mean, without spoiling it, don't like meaningfully change anything. They're just another way to get around that's similar to another way that you've got around previously in this game. But like my view is they don't really hold back this game from like greatness. Like it's still like I am just like over 20 hours in. So, I'm still going to get to that like end game stuff that everybody's like really praising. But for me it's like almost a masterpiece right now, and like even if I finished it today, like it would still be a meaningful entry in Nintendo's like platformer catalog, and that is an insane like accolade for any game.
It's a high bar.
Like it's a really high bar, and it like for me just about clears it right now. And I feel like I have to give them points for like experimentation as well. They didn't have to experiment with this. They could have just thrown out a reskinned Odyssey, right? And people would have given it, 9s and 10s that they've given it. But they've like, you know what? No, fuck it. We're going to experiment. We're going to do something weird. This is our first like big game beyond Mario Kart for a new console. Let's come out with a splash. Like I think they've tried to kind of emulate that Breath of the Wild moment, but didn't quite land so well from what I've played in the 20 hours. But still, I think it deserves the accolades it's getting. Based on what I've played so far. What about you, Brad? Where are you on this one?
I definitely think it's one of the best games of the year, easily for me. I mean, I'm a big Donkey Kong guy already, so what I was looking for is reinvention for Donkey Kong in a lot of ways, because it has been very, as much as I love it, very stagnant, caught in that kind of rare era of Donkey Kong. Don't get me wrong, I love that kind of stuff, but I was looking forward to seeing a new approach to it, and I'm very pleased overall with how it turned out. I have a few gripes here and there, but I'll save that kind of stuff in the future, where like we can talk about spoilers and stuff more. We won't today because it just came out and everyone's still playing through it. But I think it's an incredible game. There was so many fun moments of just, I think the thing is like, with Hoeg, like I'm kind of not the opposite in the 4-way, but I totally embrace kind of just like their design philosophy and tackling things how you want to tackle it. And I know that is not for everybody, but I really appreciated this time around, especially in a Donkey Kong game. I thought it was super fun with this toolkit. Like just being able to break everything is so fun and creative. And you do get those weird moments at first where you like punch something and there's just like pieces floating in the air and you're like, oh, that's a little weird. But then I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, well, if everything was fully physics based, the game would explode probably and the levels would blow up because it just wouldn't work. Like you wouldn't be able to beat the game because everything would just fall apart.
Yeah, no,
and
it
the
would
Switch
get
2
weird.
wouldn't be able to run it. Yeah.
The
clearly
Switch
not
would
designed.
explode.
Yeah, the Switch would literally explode probably. So all that stuff's funny. The powers I think are interesting. I do miss the animal buddies that you got in the old games, like riding on Rambi and all that kind of stuff's really fun. I loved all that kind of stuff. But I do think it's cool in some of that weirdness you guys are talking about with the Odyssey team of just really weird shit. It's like, yeah, you're turning into a zebra gorilla now, and he looks
that one is
disturbing.
Scary.
Yeah,
zebra is a scary mother.
Yeah, and they all have like weird banana hair and stuff like that. It looks like a Super Saiyan gorilla, but it's like it all feels really good to do. Like when you're doing a charge punch is like the big gorilla form you get that your first power up, dude. You just like see that shockwave travel through and like destroy all this kind of stuff. That's the kind of fun that you get from like a Nintendo game where I'm like, wow, this is really weird and impressive in its own kind of way, which it has that Nintendo creativity that I love so much. I am curious to see how this kind of will evolve over time and what people will think about it when they finish the game. Like overall, I love the game. I think it's fucking awesome, but I am just curious to see how people will react. Like how you guys will react when it's all said and done. Cause I don't want to spoil any of that kind of stuff for you guys, but it's something.
That's what I've heard. Everybody keeps saying something like it's something. And it's like, all right, I got to see that.
I'll say that in a good way for me.
Yeah.
Something in a good way.
Yeah, everybody said it in a good way. I think we're on the same page there, Hoeg. I want to know what people are talking about because it's already pretty out there. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see. Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. It's part of the driving push is like people out there going, well, that ending is sure a thing. And it's like, okay, let's talk about it, Donkey Kong. Let's do it.
This is from a rabbit that only eats hawks. I've never been a big Donkey Kong fan, and I'm kind of iffy on platformers. I sort of like them, but I sort of don't. Gene made this seem like it wasn't super platform heavy, so it might fall into the category of platformers that I like. How difficult is the platforming in this game, and is it mostly wrapped around the platforming in your experience? Now, Hoeg, you brought up Astrobot earlier. This is way less dependent on actual like precise platforming, I would say, compared to a game like that.
It is, absolutely. So in answer to the commenter, this is a open world collectathon that we don't have a great term for other than platformer. So that's what we use.
Yeah.
But you are not jumping on and off platforms so much. And in terms of precision, it doesn't really demand precision of you too often. In fact, one of the complaints I would have about the game is that some of the boss fights and some of the challenges ask you for precision that really isn't kind of built into the control scheme. That Donkey Kong, unlike Astrobot, is really unilaterally deciding to cling to walls and jump over things that are in front of him and do all these various other things that make precision difficult. But the game itself is not usually designed around needing that precision. So if you don't like platformers for that, for hitting a floating platform and making sure you land on a specific spot, this does not ask that of you. Most often. I clarify this only because I'm a lawyer and I have to disclaim everything I say in all contexts. But there are instances where I did grow a little bit frustrated against some bosses in some fights where I say, come on, camera. Come on, Donkey Kong. I'm not asking you to do that. Don't do that. And Donkey Kong wouldn't listen, and he'd just jump into the slime or whatever of his own accord. And that you can say, get good, son. You suck, Rick, whatever you want to say. But I do think certain elements of the game, again, don't feel like the right hand is talking to the left hand, that the main thrust of this game is destruction, is having Donkey Kong be a force of nature, a Tasmanian devil, run against anything he wants, climb on anything he wants. Sometimes it does ask for a little bit more than that, and the game isn't always ready to meet you there. Although I do find, after having played it all weekend, that going back to some of the earlier things that I found so difficult to begin with, like most video games, you come back and say, oh, I guess at some point I learned the language of how this control set works and what they're aimed at, because I'm much better at figuring out where that punch is going to go, where Donkey Kong is going to land, when he's going to jump on that wall when I don't really want him to, that kind of thing. But overall, for your commenter, I would not worry about the platforming. And if you don't like platformers but are interested in a 3D open world Destructathon, this is probably the best place for you to go. It's not Astrobot. It's not.
Yeah, I guess I'd compare it. Like Astrobot would be the more like, in terms of like PS1 era, more like Crash Bandicoot and stuff like that, like going through stages and stuff like that, and very platform focused, opposed to Mario 64. While it did have platforming, a lot of it was much more kind of this areas that were sandboxes and you run around and stuff, and you don't have to worry about just continually moving forward, I would say. So there's a lot more room if you're into like exploration, stuff like that. There's some platforming parts in this game for sure, and later on where it's going to put you to the test a bit more, but a lot of that stuff is optional if you want to do it. They're kind of in the shrine areas and stuff like that. Like there's some really fun creative things in there later on.
Yeah, and the best part of this design, that I think was the same with Odyssey, and I apologize for jumping on you, Brad.
No, you're good.
Was that there are so many extra moons, or in this case, bananas, that you really can control what you want your progression to be. You go into a challenge, you say, oh my, no, not right now, either now or ever. And you say, I don't need those 3 bananas, because you're not going to be 3 bananas short of what you're looking to do with your Donkey Kong. And so you get to choose, you get to pick and choose what it is that you want to do. So if you go into one of these platformer type challenge shrines and say, this isn't working for me, you can just skip out. Or as my daughters said, as a joke, as part of these things, you get 2 choices at the end of Donkey Kong, just like you get in life. You can retry or you can give up.
Mm-hmm.
And you can absolutely give up your Donkey Kong level, no problem. And I really don't think anybody that has any issue with a specific type of challenge, including platforming challenges, is going to have any issue with this game. I really do think this is the right place for you to go based on what the commenter described.
Yeah, I'd agree. But I'd also say there maybe is a third option as well. And this is one that I know about, like on Odyssey, because I played with my nephew when that came out. But there is a really robust like assist mode. So, if you don't have the like technical chops to, or the controls don't lend themselves to that precision, you can just turn on the assist mode and have that help you through the platforming sections. That's fine. It's a way to do it if like you want to enjoy the game, but don't want to learn it or can't learn it. That's a great way forward. But also, if you own a Switch 2, I kind of feel like I forget the name of the commenter, but like I feel like you should probably just buy this game because what else are you playing right now?
If you have a Switch
right?
2, you should absolutely get it.
Yeah, it's a technical showcase as well. Like, yes, the performance does dip, like, when bosses explode or when you get a bit too crazy with the environmental destruction, but it's beautiful. Like, the animations as well, right? Like, we're getting diminishing returns on graphics now. But, like, Nintendo are really smart with this by really upping the ante on their animation game, the charm. Like, the animations for Donkey Kong and also for Pauline as well. Like, my partner and I have been, like, going in photo mode and, like, seeing their expressions with every kind of move, and it changes for everything. And I feel like you just need to experience it. If you have a Switch 2, like whether or not you're good at platformers or not, put the assist mode on. Like Hoeg said, like, there's a lot of choice architecture. If you want to skip a difficult platforming section, there's going to be bananas galore somewhere else. So I think you should play it.
Yeah. The game really eases you in with that kind of stuff. Like, you don't have to worry about really tough platforming for a long time. So you'll be fine, I think. So give it a try. Like Rhys said, if you have a Switch 2, you should just probably buy it because it's really good. And there's not a whole lot of first party stuff going on yet, so you might as well. Okay, this is from Sean Mason. Hey, Summoners. I've put in about 11 hours of Donkey Kong so far. I'm completely hooked. I'm thrilled to see how much this dev team has learned from the only problem I had with Odyssey. One of the biggest issues in Odyssey was how many moons felt like freebies, which ended up diminishing the impact of the more creative or challenging ones. This time around, it feels like they really understood that less is more, fewer bananas, but each one is meaningful and rewarding to earn. I'm loving the depth and complexity behind so many of these challenges. What do you all think? Best Sean M. Bananas. I like the idea. It's not the most creative thing, but they at least do something in the sense that you get skill points from collecting them. Do you like this approach, Hoeg?
The skill tree? I think
and I guess just making your collectibles mean something more, I guess, than a number.
Well, I don't know that I would go so far as to say that all of the bananas are rewarding and meaningful. I think there are still some scattered around. I do agree that in Odyssey, there would just be one sitting there. You'd pick up a moon and you'd be like, okay, move on to the next. And there wasn't a big delineation between the easy moons and the hard moons. So the hard moons just felt terrible because you had to go through all these extra steps to get the same thing that was just sitting on the desert floor or what have you. What really works to Donkey Kong's advantage here is the digging function, right? These all go together. So bananas can be quote unquote sitting out there, but they might be in the middle of a mountain. Like there's nothing difficult about digging through the mountain except that you don't know how to find the banana. And they have a great radar system that they've built in. In fact, one of the first things that I upgraded was my radar distance. And I highly recommend that because it just flashes all sorts of stuff on your screen when you clap and you get that big long radar boom. But it means that you can have bananas that are otherwise easy, but aren't just sitting out there in the landscape for when the camera pans over and you see all the bananas. And I think that really improves the sense that you're finding something. The sense of discovery in Donkey Kong Bonanza is super strong. And they have some procedural generation for where the gold appears and where treasure chests appear. And I think that all works to its advantage. Bananas inside of mountains is better than moons just sitting on the ground.
Yeah. All right, boys. Let's move on from Donkey Kong. We'll have more to say about that in the coming weeks. But let's talk Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4. Rhys, you've been playing this. Tony Hawk me 1, 2, 3. I kind of fell off after that, and I haven't really played any other ones. But you're playing these right now, and I'm really curious. I've heard some people upset about some changes in 4 that they've done to like state. Like, I'm not exactly sure what the problem is because I have no context for 4. But talk to me about Tony Hawk so far, I guess.
Yeah, sure. I mean, a little context first. I'm a bit biased about this series because, like, it means a lot to me, honestly. Like, it probably shaped me as a person more than almost any piece of media. Like, I mean,
okay.
when I explain it, yeah, like I was a little shite of a child back in rural Wales. Like, you know, didn't have many friends, would act out a lot. And games were like my solace in a lot of ways, Zelda, Final Fantasy, and stuff like that. But then I found like the Tony Hawk series and the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series in particular. And I just fell in love with it, became obsessed. And then that obsession, especially with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, which came out in like 2000, 2001, and its soundtrack like really kind of led me to fall in love with like metal and punk and skate culture in general. It even made me like start skateboarding, which is a pretty common story for a lot of skaters. Actually, they found their way to it from Tony Hawk's. And so I started skating, like going to metal and punk nights, like fell in with like a good crowd of skaters, and honestly got off a bad path. So just wanted to, you know, put some context on it that I'm pretty biased.
Well, hold on. Let me dive into that. I'm curious. What was like the skate culture like in Wales and stuff like that?
So it wasn't very big, like especially where I was from, like a very small village, but like in the city closest to me, which is Swansea, which Snoop Dogg just like put an investment in our football team, but I digress on that one. So weird. But yeah, there was more of a skate culture in like the city center. But then like when the Tony Hawk games hit, like I could really see it like grow. Like there was like a noticeable boom because like, you know, there weren't that many kids around, but like, I don't know, 20% of them or something like that ended up skateboarding, which was wild for rural Wales. Like you could really see it. And it really led to a boom in skateboarding like across the world, and really like led to a lot of people falling in love with punk, and it like let bands like Bad Religion and AFI, like punk classics, like it really helped build their career and like give them like a following. So yeah, I owe a lot to Tony Hawk's, honestly. If it wasn't for those original games, like I don't know where I would be right now. I would not be recording this podcast. Yeah. That's for sure.
That's really cool. Like even me, I grew up in I'm from Orange County, so I was like I was like in that culture right here. And even when Tony Hawk still came out, like I definitely saw a boom of kids starting to skateboard. So that's so awesome. I love hearing stuff like that. People getting into skateboarding and music and stuff from Tony Hawk. Super cool.
Yeah, it really was awesome to see. But the remake like really gave me a means to kind of relive that like formative experience in my life. Soppy stuff is a bit out of the way now. But
no, I think it's super important and really cool hearing about like the kind of connections people have with games, because it means a lot to a lot of people, and you can get kind of an idea where they're coming from more and why it's so special to them. So please do share more stuff like that. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, there was a chance to relive it with this new remake. So the remake, I guess more context there. It's a remake of 3 and 4 together.
Yep.
And it comes about 4 or 5 years after a remix of 1 and 2, which were done by Vicarious Visions before they were absorbed into the Call of Duty machine. This one has I was so gutted when I heard that. Yeah. This has been one of the few positives from the Microsoft's acquisition of Activision, because I don't think this game would have happened if it weren't for that. Like layoffs aside, which were fucking disgusting, honestly, and sorry clients, like they just were disgusting. So, but yeah, like this was one of the few good things to come from that acquisition, in my opinion. But yeah, it's great. You know, the moment Ace of Spades kicks in the intro song, which was one of the tracks in the original as well, it really just like teleported me back, super nostalgic. A lot of the levels that, you know, the community loves, like Alcatraz, Suburbia, Foundry, Airport, are all there, recreated with a lot of like slick modern visuals, a lot of like particle effects, extra flourishes. Like the Suburbia level, for example, was pretty barren back in the original Tony Hawk's 3 days.
Yeah, I do remember that level. Okay.
Yeah, that was a cool one. It's like the cul-de-sac, and but they've like really double down on the Halloween iconography there now. So it's like happening in Halloween. So you have all like
really?
the
That's cool.
decorations, and there was always a supernatural element to that level, but they've really doubled down on it. It's kind of more, it's an iteration of the 1 and 2 remakes. So a lot of the trick chaining, the speed, the flow, responsiveness are just basically the same as that. There is a unified move set across both games, so like spine transfers, which they brought in Tony Hawk's 4, and now across both. But I guess we should talk about the soundtrack, right? Because that is like that's the key thing about Tony Hawk's and what makes it special to so many people, myself included. So in the 1 and 2 remake, like a lot of the tracks from those original games came back. But in this one, there's only like 10 out of, I think it's about 55, 60 tracks that made it back. So a lot of fewer tracks. Yeah, something like 20%. And there are some like new tracks that they used to replace them. Not, but it's no replacement. But there are some good songs, like Turnstile, Idols on the punk side. Hip hop, there's like Kendrick Lamar stuff on there. And they also replaced some of the original tracks from certain artists with other ones. For example, like Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast was on there, but now they've replaced that with 2 Minutes to Midnight. Banger, but not quite the same. But I think it was probably a budgeting issue, to be honest, because like anybody who knows about music licensing knows that it's like a web of negotiation, approval, bureaucracy. Like you need a license per market, like per who wrote it, who recorded it. So yeah, I think they were just like trying to get around that, to be honest, because it was a bit of a shoestring sub like kind of thing for Activision, for Xbox. But there are some like new levels as well, like so it wasn't just a complete rehash. So for Tony Hawk's 4, they have like water park, movie studio, and a pinball level, and they fit so well into kind of the structure of those original games. Like if you hadn't played the original games, you would think they were just kind of part of the roster. And I think Water Park, like having played the game for about 40 hours now, I played a lot over the weekend. Like I moved to Amsterdam about 10 years ago. And after a month, my childhood friend also moved here, one of my best friends. And so like every weekend we would just like get high and play games together back then, because early 20s in Amsterdam. But now we still see each other and we meet every month and just have a weekend of smoking weed and playing games. So we did that this weekend and just absolutely blitzed Tony Hawk. We played for like I think across the 2 days about 15 hours or something like that.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't know. So he was like a Tony Hawk fan back in the day, but hadn't really played since then. But he was like, oh, like, was this one in the old one? I can't remember. So like they fit so well that he couldn't even tell. But I hope, like the game isn't actually selling that well, sadly. Like it's got like 100,000 copies sold as per linear estimates across PlayStation and Steam. A little more than that now. A lot more on Xbox thanks to its Game Pass inclusion, like almost 2 million players. But yeah, like I don't think they made much money on it so far, honestly, sadly. But the new levels are great, and like Iron Galaxy could easily make a new Tony Hawk game and hit it out of the park, because they made 3 new levels and they're all fucking great. If they made 10 levels, that'd be a great game.
So if more Tony Hawks come out, I guess, do you want a brand new Tony Hawk or do you want remakes, more remakes?
So for me, I would prefer a new Tony Hawk. Like, I think they could remake Underground and Underground 2, but they're bigger games. They're like pseudo open world in some respect. Haven't aged that well. It's very story driven, so they'd have to re-record a lot of voice lines and stuff like that. So it'd be expensive. Would take a very long time to make unless they did AI, which I fucking would hope they wouldn't. But like for me, like I prefer the more arcadey 2 minutes. Here's all your goals. Just more arcadey style, which was where so Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, which was your question at the start, Brad. That was more open, like GTA style. You go over to a character, you do a challenge. But for the remake, they made it so that Tony Hawk 4 levels were the same as Tony Hawk 3, in that you have 2 minutes and have to complete a set amount of goals in those 2 minutes.
Yeah, let me read this real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Let me read this. This is from Nicholas Brillhart. Greetings, Summonussies. So how do we feel about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 axing For's mission-based structure? Personally, it's keeping me from jumping in at all. 4 is where I really started to vibe with the series for the first time, and getting this aspect of the game feels like a cop-out. I'll slip on a banana peel and listen. So what do you think about this, Rhys? Like, this whole structure being taken out of the game. Is it bothering you?
It did at first, but like I know Nicholas as well, like I realized like why, like the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 now have the 2-minute timer, they ditched the free roam quest stuff. And a lot of people online are kind of like salty about it, a lot of purists. But like it does fit the arcade pacing of the series overall. Like it means that they didn't have to re-record all those like voice lines and, go through all that kind of, red tape again, which would make it, they probably wouldn't be out this year if they had to do that. It was a time constraint thing. But like while the Tony Hawk's 4 stuff maybe isn't as good as the stuff in 3, it's still fucking rad. And if you're like tangentially a fan, which it sounds like you are, Nicholas, don't let that Tony Hawk's 4 change get in the way of you enjoying a really good game, especially if you have Game Pass. Like, just check it out. There's also a demo, I believe, that you can download. So check it out, see if you enjoy. I think there's one level from Tony Hawk's 4 on there as well, College. So you can try it out for yourself, but I would say just give it a shot. Like, even if you just play and enjoy the Tony Hawk's 3 stuff, it's still worth it, in my opinion.
Okay. Cool. Very well said. I got a good idea of the game. All right, Hoeg, let's move on to Become the Moon. Talk to me.
Yes. So Become the Moon is a roguelike deck building, deck drafting auto battler, which is a lot of genre classifications, a lot of random gamer speak there.
That sounds like the most stereotypical indie game ever, or something like
right?
that. Yeah.
Right? Just get the SEO going. What are the words people like to apply to indie games? Put them all in a stew, and you're going to get Become the Moon. Now, one of the things I like to do on Steam and in all the other eShops, honestly, is to go dig into possible games that I would like, try them out, and report on them back to places like this, but also to my family, because they like to get new and exciting games to play just like I do. This was one of those that I was originally attracted to by the art. Mm-hmm. So I think Become the Moon has really strong art, but more importantly, as my daughter would tell you as she makes fun of me for all the games that I play, it's got cards. I love building decks. I love board games. I love deck building mechanics. I love drafting cards. I just love using cards. And so indie games, in a lot of ways, have taken the board gaming elements that I like so much with decks and cards and applied them in all sorts of interesting ways. And in this particular case, they've taken the drafting element. So every time that you have to reset your deck, you run out of cards to draw, you draft new ones. And they have applied that to what amounts to a kind of Hearthstone game. But the auto battler element of it says you're going to set up your team and you're going to hope for the best, which is one of my favorite aspects of an auto battler. You don't have to dive into the tactics every time. And you're going to just let your team fight the other team and see what happens. And so putting all those things together, along with the typical rogue elements of different artifacts that change the way your entire team plays or gives you other special powers between rounds, and different leaders that have different special abilities that break rules in different ways for the game, means that you can play one of these, and I play it basically every morning before work at this point in time, get a light strategic and tactical kind of experience, and then move on with your day after maybe a half hour. So I like to call these things out because there's a lot of, as you say, these kinds of indie games out there. A lot of the times they don't work. A lot of the times they have maybe little niggling issues with the polish or the way that they actually function. This is, in my opinion, one of the best that I have seen that is constantly rewarding to play in pretty quick runs, which is one of the things I'm also looking for in my workday. And so I wanted to call that out. I also wanted to call out the fact that when I first bought this game, I really did not like it. It really didn't work for me so well because I wasn't expecting some of the things it does with the auto battling, not being able to control who you're attacking, how to actually make this strategy work. I just wasn't understanding it. And there were certain aspects of the way the cards worked that I think were either wrong or wrongly thought through. And I always like to give credit to the devs that look at this, look at community feedback, and are instantly looking at the ways that things are and aren't working and changing things on the fly. So in the first week that this game was out, I think it came out in June, they were immediately updating things, changing things, and it immediately felt better. And it feels great now. I anticipate that it will continue to feel better into the future. These developers are clearly looking at how the game interacts, the data that they're getting from the way player runs are working, and they're tweaking things on the fly. I don't always love that because things can feel like you're on uneven ground, but the changes that they have made so far in this game, I think have really worked for it. And I don't love every iteration of a roguelike. I don't love every iteration even of a deck builder, even though I like that as a concept. This one works really well for me, and it's pleasant to look at the entire time. So I wanted to call it out here in a place like Summon Sign, because I don't always see little games, tiny games that could otherwise get absolutely caught in the flood of things that release on Steam and other shops get called out. So Become the Moon, folks. It's a ridiculous name. It's got a story, I suppose, but it's not really. You don't need a story from a game like this, but for the most part, there's magic things afoot. Someone is using the moon to make wishes, maybe. Who knows? It's all like that kind of indie game poetry at the beginning, right? Where you just get sentences that kind of evoke things more than say things. And then you're playing through a roguelike. But I find it highly enjoyable.
I'm looking at the Steam page right now, Hoeg, and it looks like there's some kind of cinematics in the game. Or is that just for like the Steam page?
Let me see the Steam page. Let me pull it up here behind the scenes. I would not describe anything that happens in this game as cinematics.
Okay.
So there's an intro that has that kind of poetry notion, and you really only see that when you do the tutorial. Every other time, you're just going to say new run. You're going to pop in there. You're going to make a deck. You're going to fight with your deck. You're going to pop out. In other games, you're not coming for the story because it's minimally told or it's not important. This game, the story is basically non-existent. You're playing with cards. You're fighting other people with their cards. You're hoping to win. I have only ever gotten through the first false ending, essentially, where it then expands the game and asks you to get to the real ending. So at this point in time, I'm still kind of learning deck builds and getting to that final successful run. But I love these type of games that continue to challenge you and ask you to find new strategies. And the drafting element of this means that you are never kind of just locking into your min-max perfect strategy, which I have as an issue with some other games of this type.
Interesting. It looks, the way like the animations are moving and everything and the cards hitting each other looks a lot like Hearthstone.
Oh, it's completely based on Hearthstone as an aesthetic. There's no question about that.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess we said what's standing out about this game, I guess, from other games in this space is the pace of it, you said?
Yeah, it's really nice. And every time I turn it on, there are certain games that I turn on where I play them and I say, maybe I don't feel like playing this right now, or maybe I don't feel like playing a game at all right now. And you get one battle done, you get two battles done, and you just wind up saying, oh, I'm gonna finish this run. I'm gonna play for the full 30 minutes, 40 minutes. It's that kind of game that sucks you in, just kind of on the basis of the fun that you're having without even expecting it. So I think it's under $20.
Yeah.
It's got fantastic art. It's got a nice design. I think I've said in this space that one of the things I really cherish and one of the issues I think I had with Bananza, at least at the front end, is elegance. I like people being able to make complicated, interesting, strategic video games and board games, frankly, with very simple rule sets that are easy to understand and otherwise teach. And this is a game where I think you will learn how to play it in 5 minutes, and learning how to actually strategize around what it's asking you to do will take a lot longer. And so I highly recommend it.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up another Hearthstone comparison.
Sure.
Do you kind of have like a class you play as, anything like that has like a unique ability? Or is it just the cards?
No, you have a leader that does something that's mildly rule breaking.
Okay.
So like the standard of monsters that you have on the board is 7. They're called minions in this game. And the starter leader that you get is allowed to have 8, as a for instance. And when you're drafting, you can draft more minions than spells and all these various things. And each leader, I think, maybe not every leader, most leaders have a companion card that come from their opening deck that do something else. So they mostly have 2 or 3 powers that you're interacting around. And then like the beauty here is you're not playing full Hearthstone matches. You essentially bash your teams against each other once, and that's the whole round. And whoever wins gets to hit the other leader for a point per surviving minion, and then you hit each other in attrition damage. So it's all very quick. You're only ever fighting once. All of your minions come back from the dead for the next round. And so you're just kind of trying to build your team up and your synergies up on a constant basis without worrying about the results of any one clash. So it's a very interesting kind of dynamic. There might be other indie games or other card builders that have worked with this before. There's obviously hundreds of them out there, but this is the first time I've interacted with it. It's an unusual design. And I think it really works for what they're trying to do here in a way that I didn't anticipate from just looking at the cool art and wanting to play that game.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it looks like an interesting little game. Like you said, it is less than $20. I think it was like 17. I closed the page, but I think it was like around that price. So if you're into deck building games and stuff like that, maybe give it a check or check it out.
It is the purest form of a deck builder. Like you are going to build a deck, and that is the primary purpose in which you are turning this application on.
Okay.
Nice. I think I'm going to download it after this show because I've been playing the shit out of Monster Train 2, and it sounds like there's a lot of similarities, but with the auto battler stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love Monster Train. Monster Train is a little bit more complicated than this, like at the end of the day. So if you're looking for something one notch less, whether it's the beginning or the end of your day, it just demands a little bit less of your brain horsepower. I highly recommend this one.
Yeah. When did you hear about this, by the way? Because it's such a tiny game. I'm just curious where you kind of...
honestly, I think part of my process is that every once in a while I check in on the eShop or the PlayStation Network or the Xbox Store. In this case, it was Steam. And I just go through maybe the most recent 20 games released and maybe the top 20, something like that. Something that is like palatable for me that I can actually handle in the time that I have afforded to me. So I have undoubtedly missed thousands of games using that process. But I go in and I check in and I say, that seems cool. What's the price? And for the most part, I will pull the trigger on something that seems cool if it's less than $20. Like that's one of the things that I will do. And one of the things that I would like to call out Nintendo for on the Switch 2 right now actually is the algorithm that they have set up for recommending games on the Switch eShop that was introduced, I think, for the Switch 2. It might also be on the eShop in the Switch now because I transitioned when the Switch 2 came out. But they've got a thing that comes up every Saturday and basically pulls from the games that you've played, that the hours that you've spent, and recommends 10 games from their store. And because they have the same problem that every other store has in terms of discoverability, they pull those 10 games and you can tag them for your wish list just like normal. And the other aspect that they've added to their eShop now is that the wish list function is on their menu and it will tell you how many games are on sale. And you can add a filter that says only show me the games on sale. So I don't like to overspend on these things. But one of the things that really worked for me very recently, yesterday, as a matter of fact, was that there was a game they showed me a couple weeks ago that was a $20 game that I almost bought, but I wasn't quite there. I put it on the wish list, went on sale on Saturday at 85% off.
Wow.
And I looked at it on my wish list. I pulled the trigger on that and couldn't be happier about that whole process. So that's the kind of thing that I do pretty regularly. That's why there are so many Hoeg's Notes type games. I love indie games. I love smallish games. For the longest time, the Switch was so underpowered that was almost all that I would buy on it, were like the things that looked interesting but didn't demand anything more than 2D pixel graphics. And so I have a big collection of Switch games that are like that. And I've just increased that with the Switch 2.
Yeah. Cool. All right, boys, let's move on to the next segment, which is Sorted Out. On this segment, we just talk about something in the gaming industry we're not too pleased with or can use a little work, a little sorting, if you will. Let's see here. Rhys, let's start with you. Is there anything in the games industry you want to call out that needs sorting?
Yeah, I think bloated budgets. I think it's no new argument, but I saw like in the news that Yves Gilmore said that the budget for Assassin's Creed Shadows was over 100 million euros, so over 120 million dollars. So it could have been 200 million dollars. Who knows? But like,
there's a lot of space in over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that was by design, but I just think that's kind of ridiculous because I think like I've been looking at the numbers and I think they've generated about 150 million dollars in revenues across all kind of platforms so far. And yeah, so they've barely broken even. Maybe they haven't broken even. And like, what was it, like a 5-year development cycle? It's just unsustainable, right? It's unsustainable. Like, you can't have those long development cycles for franchises like Assassin's Creed anymore. Like, look at Expedition 33, like had about 30 people in the core team and then a wider support team, of course, supporting them about 4 years. But you've got to imagine that the budget was well below 100 million, probably, somewhere even below 50 million, I dare say. And it's just unnecessary. Like, for these big bloated open world games like Assassin's Creed Shadows, you just don't need it anymore. And you can see that it's been at Ubisoft's detriment. Like, look at them, look where they are now. They've had to have Tencent save them, and now they've spun out into like 2 separate companies, in which also a secondary rant, like the nepotism of having Charlie be Yves Guillemot's son be the co-CEO, like looking over these like beloved IPs. And then in the interview, when asked about nepotism, he was like, I have such a robust experience like in this. And then like you have reporters like Dean Takahashi. Like, I love Dean, but he just kind of flipped the press release, and like his article was, not to call Dean out, but like the article was like, Charlie Guillemot has 10 years of experience in game development, innovative new monetization. But no, like, he made that failed Tom Clancy mobile game with the anti-BLM messaging, then buggered off to Web3 for a year and a half, has now come back, and he's the co-CEO of a new like Tencent funded like Ubisoft initiative. Like, it's disgusting. So sorry, you had 2 for 1 there. Like, games should be shorter with lower development budgets and like fuck nepotism, basically. Yeah.
Let me piggyback off you right here. So Yves Guillemot recently said, I think this was to shareholders or something like that. I'm trying to read where it was from exactly, but there's a quote where he said, talking about microtransactions, quote, make the player experience more fun, end quote, because players can personalize their avatars or progress more quickly. But he also stressed they're always optional. So just the fact that you have that kind of mentality built into your game, like Assassin's Creed, I'm good. I don't need to play it.
I like Ubisoft, but when you read a quote like that, I think, okay, so we're only one step away from the actual DLC being fun. $1.99.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like paid to like get experience and stuff like that in a single player game. It's like, what are we even doing here, guys? What are you guys doing? What's going on, man?
Ubi's always been very aggressive on that stuff.
They have been, and it's
true.
Usually pretty bad. I always get mad. Like, I haven't played Shadows, but like when I've played some of the old games, I'm like, what is all this DLC armor or like armor you could buy that's all cool? I'm like, why isn't this not in the fucking game just to unlock? And it's like, there's a lot of it. It's very annoying. But
yeah, just save money. Like, cut 30% of the filler content and save money there.
Yeah.
Release the games like in, fewer increments. Like, they have that Assassin's Creed Portal thing come in, where, it's kind of like their hub into the different game worlds, the different historical periods, if that ever comes out.
I was like, didn't they say that like a long time ago?
Yeah, they did. They said it in the metaverse further and before their troubles, so maybe it will never come to be. But we don't need a 150 hour or even 100 hour or even an 80 hour Assassin's Creed game every 4 years. We need a 20 to 30 hour one every 2 to 3 years, and you'd make just as much money. There would be like less fatigue in terms of the long play time. People would be able to dip into different historical periods if they want. Ubisoft can experiment a bit more. They tried that with Mirage, but like you look at the trophy like completion rates, the achievement completion rates. There's like 70% of people aren't getting to the end game. Who are you making this content for? Like 5% of players, like, who are going to buy your damn DLC anyway? Like, it's just a massive opportunity cost. Like, I don't know.
I'm looking at how long to beat, and it just said for main story 34 hours. But if people aren't even making it towards like the end or anything like that, like that's a meaty game, but not as long as I thought it would be. But like, if the trophy percentage is still low on that, it's like, man, you're doing something really wrong.
So, I really like Are you reading about Shadows?
Yes.
I really like Shadows, but I've definitely played it more than 35 hours, and I'm not particularly.
It's just a main story. I think
Okay.
that's just like if you're beelining it, which is
Okay.
still like very long. It said main plus sides 63, completion is 94.
I'm probably somewhere between those play styles, I would guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
But,
most people would play it like that too, to be honest, right? You're not just going to do critical path.
No, probably not. Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I talk shit on Assassin's Creed every time I get the chance, so I will back off.
I like Shadows.
They make it so easy.
I know.
Sorry, Hoeg, you go ahead.
Oh yeah,
No.
I didn't even play Shadows. I was like, nah, I'm good. Especially with Ghost of Yotei coming up. No way, dude.
Yeah.
I'll save all my energy for that game.
I get that. I certainly do. Certainly, having played as much of Shadows as I did, it did take a little bit of the shine off of Yotei because there are so many similar looking beats.
Yeah. I think that's what I've heard. Yeah, there's some definite crossover going on there. Hoeg, what about you? Anything this week?
Yes, I can definitely say sorted out to payment processors and censorship. So if you haven't seen this story, Visa and MasterCard are imposing their own will against the Steam storefront to have Steam remove certain games from their library that don't meet Visa and MasterCard's content standards. Now, they're payment processors. They don't really have artistic content standards. But if you go really diving deep into this story, you'll find that they were pressured by certain advocacy groups. And the games that are most affected right now are not games that anybody's going to jump up to defend, right? You're looking at certain sexual content on Steam that people get offended by. Totally fine. Not here to talk about the policy on that. What I am going to talk about, though, is allowing your platform to be pressured by things that are essentially financial service industry concepts rather than artistic ones is a slippery slope. You don't want to have somebody from Visa or MasterCard or Bank of America or anyone else say in the future that X game is no longer acceptable and we shouldn't allow our credit cards to be used on your service if you sell that thing, because at some point that's going to be a game you care about. It's very hard to defend to the non-gamers in the world something like GTA 6, for instance, which won't be on PC imminently, but will eventually. And while you might say, Rick, you're being ridiculous and it's okay to just have these games come off the platform because they're unacceptable to all right-thinking people in the world, what have you, I would say this is how these kinds of things start, right? I was in the conversations with the Senate hearings in Mortal Kombat and Night Trap. I'm not that old, folks. I wasn't in the Senate, but I was following those things on the news. I was watching Jack Thompson have his complaints about Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
And I would ask that everybody, however you might agree with these particular games being unacceptable, look at this particular issue and say, we don't want the financial services industry to tell us what kind of art that we can otherwise experience.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It ain't right. And it is a slippery slope. Oh, you're 100% correct.
That's my sorted out. And
It's
I feel for Steve.
to like the Danganronpa game in the future, and Hoeg's going to lose it.
100 line is out.
Yeah.
I feel for Steam a little bit because they're getting pressured by these places. And the blog post they put up from their dev says essentially, we want you to be able to still spend money on us, which of course makes sense from a business interest perspective. But at some point you got to say, no, we're a big platform. If you want to pull your serviceability from our platform, you can eat the cost that you're not getting from your financial services, and we'll find a way through. We'll figure out a way. We'll either finance our own credit lines, we'll finance our own store credit, whatever it's going to be. And I understand Steam not wanting to get into the regulated financial industry service sector, but at some point, somebody's going to have to say, no, Visa and MasterCard, you are not the sole arbiters of what's acceptable to the world.
Yeah. All right, let's hear from the audience. This is from Eugene Levy, bassist. Hey, fellas, I want to give a sword out to the movie directors doing video game adaptations. The recent news for Resident Evil is the new director saying people will come for me online because he's not sticking to the lore of the series. How hard is it to listen to the fans and just give us a proper Resident Evil movie? Sounds like he's just going to make a zombie movie and slap the Resident Evil name on it because it'll sell. Thanks for the content and have a great day. Now, I haven't read this comment, so I don't really know the whole context of it. I'm hoping he's just saying it will not be 100% like the game lore-wise. I hope whatever movie is coming out, they still respect the lore of Resident Evil, and it feels like they do. Or I'm hoping that feels like they do when it comes out, because There's been so many bad Resident Evil adaptations. It's brutal, man. They're all. I mean, I guess I expect them all to suck. So it is what it is already. Like, did you guys ever see the Netflix show? Oh boy,
so bad.
it was
I
so
only
bad.
heard about it. Yeah, I didn't watch it.
It was like CW Resident Evil Hoeg. It was awful.
I have to
Worse
admit,
than the original movies that came out in the early
It was
2000s.
so bad, dude. Yeah,
like the Mila Jovovich movies.
Those ones.
I'd much rather watch those. Yeah,
yeah.
It was rough.
I have to admit, my baseline assumption is, unless I hear differently, the Netflix original anything is not going to be something that I particularly enjoy.
Fair enough.
I mean, their adaptations are pretty good. Like Cyberpunk,
there's some good ones. Yeah,
decent. Like even The Witcher, people throw shade on it, but it's watchable. So like Castlevania as well, that was amazing. So like their originals, I'm with you, Hoeg, but like their adaptations, like of game stuff, I've usually been like more happy to jump in with, but I was not happy after jumping into this one. Fuck.
I think there are certainly exceptions. It's just my baseline that I'm going to assume a Netflix original is trash.
Yeah,
I have the opposite baseline for Apple. I'm going to assume an Apple content is good. And there are exceptions in both directions for both of those platforms. But that's just what I have experienced on a kind of percentage basis.
I forgot they made a Cowboy Bebop show. I'm glad I never watched that.
Yeah, I repressed that one.
Yeah, it looked really bad.
Oh, it's so bad. But I guess like to go back to the question a little bit, like we tend to like look at this stuff just from the game franchise perspective, right? And I do that as a consumer as well. But the way like directors, Hollywood creatives, TV studios look at like adaptations, they're not like translators, like they're more auteurs, right? They want to put their own spin on it. Sure. They kind of underestimate like how much the existing material means to a lot of fans. So like when a director says something like, people will come for me online, it's like a preemptive defense mechanism. And like, it's not a resounding commitment to doing the franchise justice. And when I see stuff like that, I'm like, ah, shit, here we go again, But,
yeah. And it's like, it's not the same medium. I expect things to be different, and I'm fine with that. But it's just like, you got to at least follow the basics or something like that. I don't know. You can only hope it's good. I don't expect it to be good. So if it sucks, whatever. But I hope it's cool.
Don't expect it to be good and hope that it is.
Yeah.
The quote in of itself, which was people will come for me online, right, doesn't mean anything to me insofar as having been on the internet.
People come for you.
People will come for you if you try to be as lore respectful as possible. Somebody will come for you because you didn't get Wesker's shirt color right or what have you. So that'll happen. The quote itself is just a truism more than anything else. But I do think that there is a section of media production, not all movie production, not all TV show production, but there's a section that says, all right, I'm a writer, I'm a director, I'm a showrunner, whatever it is. I want to make something. I want to make something in the genre of zombie, whatever it is. And if I can take a name and I can point to a studio and say, this has sold 100 million copies or this is this popular, then I have a better chance of getting my thing through the door. And then if it bears any resemblance to what it is that actually existed, it's not so big of a deal to me. I have a zombie story I want to tell, and I'm going to put Resident Evil on it. I'm going to put BioShock on it, whatever else is being made at Netflix that I'm forgetting at this point in time. And I do think that people are legitimately concerned / get upset about that particular state of affairs. I think that happens with other major franchises in other spaces that I won't get into because I don't want the comments myself right now. But I think that's happened quite a lot in the recent past.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well put. Like so many of these studios, not all of them, like you rightly said, just want to like slap a familiar IP and just make it easier to get funding, marketing, international distribution. And then they greenlight these projects, not because they love the lore like we do, but because the brand sells. Yeah, really well put, Hoeg.
Yeah. Okay, this is from Mark M. Hello, lads. I want to give a sort it out to game reviewers. Please, can we have some restraint when it comes to calling every decent game a 10 out of 10, GOATY, revolutionary, etc.? I feel like I have to read between the lines of every review now to find the criticisms that begrudgingly acknowledge as nitpicks to get a full picture of the game. When I do get swept up in the hype and buy the game, it disappoints me even when I like it, just because it's not a life-changing masterpiece. I think this will always be a problem in games coverage, but man, Does it feel like it's been in overdrive recently? This is kind of what we were talking about earlier with Donkey Kong, is people seeing 10s and just getting this crazy perception of a game. As someone who reviewed games professionally, I guess, quotes, when you're reviewing something, you're in a bubble and you don't know usually what anyone else is going to think about the game. So if you're giving it 10, you have no preconceived expectations about it. It's just your honest opinion at that moment in time. Let me clarify. At that moment in time is when you're writing that review and stuff like that. So when people start seeing 10s all around, then they're like, get really hyped up. But that's going to mean something different to everybody else out there. So just remember, numbers aren't everything. Read the review, watch the review. It's the best way to get it. Don't just look at the number. But this thing about I thought was interesting about nitpicks, quote nitpicks for things. I think some games can be 10s and have some flaws still. To me, it's just like, how much does it impact the game itself? Is it enough to like diminish it or in any way like that? But Hoeg, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think
I never gave a game a 10. Never.
Ever?
In my 8 years, never.
Wow. Restraint.
I was close. I was close on Elden Ring and Sekiro.
Would you for a game you didn't review? Yeah.
For a game I didn't review? That's a good question. Would I have given... Maybe. I don't think I could have. Because if I give a game a 10, it had to be like Elden Ring, I would have given a 10 if when I played it for review, it ran better. I reviewed it on PC and it did not run super well a lot of the times and it was very iffy. I would have given it a 10. But I don't know, Hoeg. I didn't, what came out? I'm trying to think what I would have given a 10. Breath of the Wild, I wouldn't have given a 10 to. I would have been close, but no. Red Dead, probably not either. Close. I would be like the high 9s probably for all those. 10 is like that kind of game. Like retroactively, if I could go back and give one a 10, I'd give Elden Ring a 10 now. But it's like, it's gotta be those life altering games, I suppose. And they are forever. It's just different like opinions and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, I think in recent
I wanted
years,
to so bad to give it 10, but I just couldn't do it, man. I couldn't pull the trigger.
In recent years, Alan Wake 2 is probably a 10 for me.
Okay.
Yeah, so on this score, in this commenter's question, I do tend to think, having watched the game industry grow up as I did, that reviewers in 2025 seem to be a little more willing to give higher scores more often. Does that mean there's a grand conspiracy? No. But I do think there's a little bit more of a hype train, a little bit more of a hype bubble than maybe existed when I was a youth.
Sure.
When I played Donkey Kong Bananza, especially for the first sequence until last night, I looked at this and said, this would have been a Game Pro, and I can see the 9 and the 2 8s and the 7 that would have pissed me off as part of this particular review block. And that's how I really feel about that game. So yeah, it's not a 10 out of 10 to me. But to back you up, Brad, 10 out of 10 does not mean perfect. Like, I don't think in any scoring rubric it means perfect. No human being has ever created anything of complete perfection in the history of mankind. A 10 out of 10 means something like genre shaping. Yes, revolutionary, the other things that your commenter referenced in their comment. And maybe a game doesn't rise to that level for you, and maybe it's a little bit overused right now. I certainly think there are places where I could point to 10 out of 10s and say, that really doesn't feel appropriate to me. But the other thing to remember about all these things is that they're opinions. People like to use objective out there on social media. There is nothing objective about criticizing a piece of art. It is the most subjective act that maybe you can do other than creating the art yourself. And obviously writing a review is an act of creation. And so you could have reviews or reviews if you were so inclined. Yeah. But I look at 10 out of 10 and I say, yes, that should mean something special to me. I should look at that and say, this is a special changing type of product, type of game. And Bananza, honestly, is probably pretty close. It's not a 10 out of 10 for me, but you can see how it is changing things at a fundamental level that we will look on probably in 5 years, maybe fewer, and say, oh, yes, this came from that. This idea came from that over there. We can see that through line. And that's the kind of thing that deserves a high score. A 10, that's going to be between you and God.
Yeah. Rhys, what do you think? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, like I honestly echo both of your thoughts. Like a 10 is perfect. Like I would have given two tens in the past decade, probably The Last of Us Part 2 for narrative reasons, just being so unique in, well, without spoiling it, because it's like in the news now, like flipping the protagonist, I guess I'll say that. And then my
That's
second
not a
one.
spoiler.
No, okay,
No,
okay. The
it's not a
statute of
spoiler.
limitations is done.
Yeah.
Okay, so you experience the same narrative through a different lens. A lot of the people you killed as Ellie, you then like go back to days prior and talk to as friends as Abby. And for me, by the end of the game, the protagonist at the start was the antagonist, and the antagonist at the start was the protagonist, and that was just yeah, very meaningful to me. And then also Slay the Spire, just like on a pure game design level, just perfect. Iterated it through the early access period and just perfect game to play. Like in half an hour intervals, there's always something to get from it. Just absolutely love it.
Nice.
But to answer the question as well, I think there's another wrinkle to it. Like compared to how things were 20 years ago, where like a staff team on a game website, game trailers, for example, to keep things in the family, and I can as well
Yeah.
with Colin. The staff could like review everything, right? But now, like so many games come out across so many genres that like your IGNs and your GameSpots, they'll have their go-to from software people, they have their go-to sports people, go-to racing people, and if somebody loved Death Stranding 1, then they're going to be hit up to write the review of Death Stranding 2. So you have super fans reviewing these games, and of course somebody who loves Soulspawn games is going to give Elden Ring a 10. Of course somebody who loved Forza Horizon 3 is going to love Forza Horizon 4 and 5. So a lot of those 10s come from super fans, and if you're a super fan reading the review, then that's meaningful to you. That 10 is a 10. But to somebody who's maybe new to a genre, has never played a From Software game before, is looking at these Elden Ring 10 scores, like, oh, let's go play Elden Ring, and like, what the fuck is this? Like, I think there is a slight mismatch between the people who are reviewing these games and the people who play these games. And I mean, there's not really a solution for that unless you do one review of a super fan and one review of somebody who's new to a franchise or genre, which would be helpful, but ain't nobody got time for that, honestly.
Right.
But I think that is part of why you see every game getting tens from certain corners of people. Like every website that I looked at, their Donkey Kong Bananza review was from the Nintendo diehard who loved Odyssey. Of course, they're going to give it a fucking 9 or 10, right?
Yeah, my advice would be is to find a reviewer you align with. Not necessarily, don't look at the review of the site, look at the reviewer of the person, actually. So I know this is not feasible in every kind of thing, but it's why people gravitate towards some YouTubers or something like that. Like if, for example, a Bethesda fan goes to Maddie or something like that, because they know Maddie's super passionate about Bethesda. That would be my advice to all of you out there, is to find a reviewer you align with mostly. It's not going to be 100% accurate, probably. You're always going to be a little different, but that'll help make the reviews align a little better for you.
Well, I think what you said about the individual rather than the outlet is exactly correct, right? IGN is an enormous
with
outlet,
a lot of people, with
a lot of people writing things, and there are reviewers that I really like on IGN that really work for. I'm likely to align with where they wound up on something, and there are ones that I am definitely not. So I think following the individual is important. The other thing I would add to that is that find an individual that does a good job explaining how they arrived at their feelings. It's very easy in all kinds of art criticism, including movies and video games, to say, I like this, I didn't like that. And there are some reviewers that stop there. That is not terribly helpful for understanding how you're likely to feel about something you haven't experienced yet. My favorite reviewers, and I have a couple of these, many of which unfortunately are no longer in the business of reviewing video games, are the ones that help describe exactly what they were experiencing and how they arrived at them feeling this way about that. And of the ones you can find, when they do that, you can then read the review even more completely and say, oh, that's not likely to bother me. That particular thing that drove this 9 to a 6 or whatever, I'm not going to care about that. Maybe you're not sensitive to frame rates. Maybe you're not sensitive to strategic issues that the AI might have in a strategy game, whatever it might be. You can look at those reviews and say, okay, I know myself well enough to say that's not going to bother me. And that's what I look for in the reviews. Now, to be honest with you, I am not reading as many reviews as I used to. I'm kind of getting a overview, a don't look straight at the sun kind of, is this thing fundamentally broken, flawed? Should I be excited about this thing coming out or not? And then that's basically all I get, just the barest whiff of what people think about this thing and then move forward. But I did, obviously, like so many of you, get the whiff that Bananza was super special because those reviews came in and I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, let's get excited. And yes, it is not a perfect beast, no pun intended, but I think you will have fun with it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Keep It Up, the exact opposite of Sorted Out, stuff we're pleased with. Rhys, what about you? Anything you're pleased with this week?
What am I pleased with? It's Monday, so I mean, that's fleeting. But I mean, I'm going to be cheesy and just say the Tony Hawk remake. Like, yeah. I've been really loving it. It's just reminded me of my childhood. Like, I'm going to go skateboarding tomorrow because of it. Like,
oh shit!
I might be in a wheelchair next week, but yeah, we'll see. But no, just like, listening to punk and metal and then like playing this like remake of a game that I played with like my best friend as a 10-year-old, playing it again with that best friend, in my early 30s, and just felt so good. And like it being one of the reasons that I ended up in this industry, and and like I'm on this podcast talking about it, it's just like, means a lot to me. It really filled me with the warm fuzzies this weekend and today as well. So
nice.
Yeah, very sentimental, but that's what that's about,
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Hoeg, what about you?
Yes, I'm going to go with what I think is the obvious answer right now, which is keep it up, Nintendo. Keep marching to your own drummer. Keep doing weird stuff. I was out here defending the Labo experiment because who doesn't want to work with cardboard and strap your Switch to it? But in all honesty, 9 out of 10 publishers would have made Odyssey 2. They would have run with everything that was already working for them into the ground. And Donkey Kong is such a weird departure for that I can't help but respect the initiative to go try something bizarre, even if it didn't work for me 100%, certainly early on. That's how you get greatness. That's how you get new ideas. That's how you get new designs. And there's a lot to complain about with respect to Nintendo and litigiousness and other things that people will have all the thoughts on social media. But I want to praise them for their bizarre, off the beaten path design sensibilities and push to keep this video game industry being interesting and new. Keep it up, Nintendo.
Yeah. I'll echo that and just say keep it up because Donkey Kong's back. It's been a long time. Last mainline Donkey Kong game came out in 2014. So the ape is back, looking good in 3D. He hasn't been in 3D since 1999, I think. So you finally got there, Nintendo. I'm happy to see the king back. So keep it up. All right, this is from T-Dot's Finest 82. Hey, Summoners, I was originally going to write this as a sorted out to most of the game devs out there for the lack of cross progression, but instead I'm going to submit a keep it up to the few who do this instead. I prefer positivity these days, given the state of the world. Ubisoft has been doing it forever, but CD Projekt Red has also great cross progression in their games. I truly don't see the downside, as sickos like me end up buying multiple versions of the game to play through it. A bonus keep it up to Ubisoft, who figured out how to auto-pop PlayStation trophies when you load into AC Shadows after playing on PC first. They've been doing cross-progression very well since Valhalla. I've also played through Outlaws and Avatar thanks to their commitment to it. That's 4 games since 2020, where they got me for 2 copies of their games to play through them. Wow. Yeah, they really got you. What, 2 versions of all those games? Damn. All right, well...
cross progression is great.
Yeah.
I just got a second copy of Fantasy Life for Switch 2 because they had a login system that allowed you to get progression over. So I hear this. I agree.
Yeah, Fantasy. I've been hearing a lot of good stuff about that game.
I think for the longest time, it was a problem for platform holders, especially when we moved more into the microtransaction era and people didn't want to lose their pound of flesh for keeping you in their ecosystem. But as that slowly broke down, I think more publishers are going to do that more often because it isn't a big logistical or cost issue for them. And I do think you can sell the shareholders on the notion that you're going to have more of an prospective audience if you don't have to look at your Switch 2 copy of Fantasy Life as a for instance and say, I don't want to buy you because all my progress is stuck on my PlayStation. So I think we'll see more of it, but keep it up. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. This is from KB. Hey, gents. I want to give a big keep it up to Guerrilla Games for building one of the best looking and best performing game engines in the industry. I don't think Guerrilla gets the recognition they deserve as a technical powerhouse. Horizon constantly gets dragged on social media, but honestly, what other in-house engine constantly delivers this level of visual fidelity and performance? It's genuinely impressive. Thanks. Yeah, the Decima engine is, for what they use it for, is excellent. Those games look amazing. Mm-hmm. Death Stranding 2, yeah, they all look great. So yeah, shout out to Guerrilla on that front for sure.
Decima is great. I think if Horizon gets dragged, as the commenter and maybe the kids say, I don't know, on social media, it's because of the narrative writing. And Horizon Zero Dawn always feels a little inert when I pop in to play it. To me, I know it is connected with some people, but it's a story that's told in the past. It's not told in the present. Never really works for me, but the giant mechanical dinosaurs and the landscapes, cool, very cool. Decima does all that. Decima is not responsible for the writing,
right?
But we can definitely say keep it up. And it's cool that Kojima and Sony were able to come to some kind of deal to make sure that they could get the engine, seemingly as part of a marketing agreement on this front. And Death Stranding 2 is all the better for it. I don't think without an engine like that, we would have seen two projects of that size come out of a company that didn't exist before at the speed that we got them. So, keep it up, lawyers. Keep it up, licensing bodies. Good job, guys, moving that IP around.
Yeah. All right, this is from Ding Dong. Keep it up, Donkey Kong. Keep it up, King of the Jungle. You've been holding it down since the arcade days, tossing barrels and breaking expectations with every comeback. Whether you're riding rhinos, blasting through barrels, or laying down that jungle groove with the crew, you've always had that rare mix of charm, challenge, and chaos. Yes, sir. Donkey Kong. It's his moment right now.
It is.
It is his moment.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do a game recommendation from the audience. This is for the audience, not necessarily us, because we get that all the time. This is from Captain Bon Clay. Howdy, Summoners. Allow me to recommend, I don't know how you even say this, Eriksholm?
Eriksholm. It's the name of the town.
Okay, The Stolen Dream, a great 8 to 10 hour stealth adventure game where you play as Hannah sneaking her way through a fictional Nordic country to find her brother pursued by strangely persistent police. Why are they hunting him? Why are they hunting you? It's a great story with very satisfying stealth gameplay. It came out July 15th, and I've heard no buzz about this game. It's a shame how many gems fall under the radar these days.
Yes. Keep it up, gem identifiers. This is one I've been following. I haven't played yet. It is, to Rhys's point on bloat and size, a game that's seemingly made by a very small team that really got what amounts to AAA type graphics out of their initiative here because they focused on making a stealth game from a isometric type perspective. So you can pull the camera out, not make all the details that you might have in a first person environment. But this is one I definitely want to check out. It looks fantastic. I love the kind of stealth tactical play in these kinds of games. I was a big fan of Commandos back in the day and the various versions of that. I like the Shadow series. Yeah, it's that kind of game where you've got different characters that each have different skill sets. And you're trying to get around guards and through spotlights and whatnot. But it's one I want to check out. Great call out. Love identifying things that slip through the cracks because they do every day.
Yes, they sure do. But yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Let's see here. Rhys, I wanted to ask you about this kind of stuff. Let's get into some sales from games. Now, you and me talked briefly before the show. I had two games in particular I wanted to know about because this is a hot topic for many, many people talk about these two games sales-wise. And those games were Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Final Fantasy 16. I want to see what numbers you got for those two games.
All right.
What you can find.
I've got some numbers for you. And these are estimates, so not official or anything like that, but they're pretty accurate if I do say so myself. But okay, so Remake, we've got 6.5 million copies sold on PlayStation. with 10 million players reached overall, thanks to the PlayStation Plus inclusion, of course. And then the Steam port has sold 1.3 million, which is nothing to sniff at for a port.
Right. Yeah.
And then Rebirth, we've got 2.6 million on PS5, which is, I mean, a lot of people thought that was quite slow, but I think that's a pretty decent result, especially for a sequel at a point where the install base was not fully there on the PS5. And then Steam, 581k for Rebirth, which is a decent injection there for Square, and I think they'll go the route of Capcom in the future, and we'll just do kind of simultaneous PC releases, because you see with Capcom, their games often sell 2-to-1 on Steam now, thanks to that transition. Yeah. They've really, really kind of found a sweet spot, and I think we'll get there with Square once they're kind of decoupling themselves, excuse me, from PlayStation and the marketing deals, because they need to, honestly. These 2.6 million is great, but 4 million would be even better, and I think they would do that with a simultaneous launch.
Right.
And then we have Final Fantasy 16 has 3.8 million on PS5, 505,000 on Steam, and on Xbox it still hasn't cracked 100,000 yet. So yeah, I mean, it kind of adds fuel to the fire of Xbox is not buying games because they have so much awesome stuff to play on Game Pass. Why would you?
Yeah, I get it. Has there been any sales this year, I guess, that kind of surprised you?
Surprise, I guess. Forza 5 is literally Forza Horizon 5 is literally the best selling game on PlayStation this year. Best selling new game, I should say. So it's sold 3 million copies now. So copies sold, we're talking. It's sold more than Monster Hunter Wilds on PS5.
Wow.
It's sold more than Assassin's Creed Shadows, and it's a port of a 4-year-old racing game. So
yeah,
I knew it would do well, but I didn't think it would do that well, honestly. I thought it would probably reach 3 million by, I don't know, the end of this quarter, but it just blasted past it. Wow. So that's one. Another one is Assassin's Creed Shadows. I thought it would have sold a lot better than it did. So on PlayStation, which is its lead platform, it sold 2 million overall. I thought it would have done a lot better than that with the Japan setting and the fact that it's been a long time since Valhalla now, almost 5 years, right?
And they did 2020.
2020. Yeah, it was right at the launch of the PS5 and Series XS. Yeah, but yeah, it's Shadows has sold 2 million. Like I said earlier, has barely broken even, if it even has. So that kind of surprised me. What was another one? Oh yeah, Elden Ring Night Rain is selling really, really well. I was expecting it to do pretty well, but it's top 4 million across Steam and PlayStation and everything now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's people have really jumped on it. But I mean, From Software fans, right? They're gonna jump on anything that's
true. Yeah,
out, and it's a great game. And yeah, I think Duskblood will also be cut from the same cloth, really amazing. And it's more; those games are more of experiments for From Software. Miyazaki's passing on the baton a bit now, and so he's training up the kind of next generation of creative leads at the company. And that's what Night Rain was, and I'd say it passed with flying colors. I think the live ops, the content treadmills, maybe not as robust as live service people expect, but the core gameplay, the core loop is there. So I think they nailed that.
Yeah,
and yeah, I think the big surprise though that I didn't expect. I knew Clair Obscura Expedition 33 was going to do really well, because it was tracking really well on the Steam wish list before launch and stuff like that. So I was this is going to sell a couple of million by the end of the year pretty easily. But it just completely shot to the stratosphere. Word of mouth paid off. I mean, it's a fucking great game. So they sold 3.5 million just across PlayStation and Steam. That doesn't include the Game Pass numbers or the Xbox numbers. It's sold on PlayStation. It's now sold twice as many copies as Metaphor ReFantasio. Insane.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
A new turn-based, JRPG style game from a new studio, selling twice as many copies after like being out for a few months versus a new Atlas JRPG on fucking PlayStation, where there's all that kind of like fandom for the Atlas games, for the Persona games. It was just like I couldn't believe it. Like obviously Expedition 33 did well, but for it to like eclipse games from Atlas, it did better than Yakuza, or not Yakuza, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth.
Yeah, it did really well.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I was so surprised by that. So there's been a lot of just like crazy stuff to see as like a sales analyst this year. Like,
yeah, I'm curious, like with Claire in particular, not only a great game, but do you think the $50 price tag helped that a lot, sell a lot more?
Yeah, I think maybe not a lot more, but definitely more. I think it's one of those games that would have shifted copies at 60, 70.
Matter what.
Yeah, indeed. But I think it definitely helped like sell a lot more. And I think the Game Pass inclusion really helped too. Like, not on Xbox, obviously. Like, not many people bought it on Xbox. Like, I don't want to give the numbers away on that today, because last time I did that, I got death threats. So I'm gonna, I'm just gonna keep it vague and say that it's not selling that many copies on Xbox. But I think the Game Pass inclusion really did help the word of mouth, right? Like, it didn't help obviously that they shadow dropped Oblivion, but that didn't like stop it in its tracks, right? Like that, it might have even helped. That's what Kepler says, but I don't quite believe it, honestly. I think had Oblivion not came out, there would be probably an even faster inertia like trajectory for Claire Obscura. I think they were just playing nice there. But yeah, really surprised me. Yeah.
I think they were playing nice, because I think that the inclusion in the Xbox showcases was really helpful in terms of just getting the brand recognition score up wherever you bought it. You knew Expedition 3 existed because it was on the Xbox show, and then they did a developer deep dive. I think that was really, really smart for discovery from a small company like Kepler. And
it worked. So I was like tracking the game then, and after those drops happened, the Steam wish list like spiked insanely. So yeah, awesome observation. Yeah,
interesting. I'm curious. Do you guys like do like sales predictions, stuff like that, or expectations coming up for like Ghost of Yotei or something like that? How are you guys expecting that?
So we don't really do expectation, like kind of forecasting. Like, it's something we're kind of working on, but honestly, like in general, like a game can come out of nowhere. Like, Schedule 1 or Repo together have generated $250 million this year. If you'd have come to me at the start of the year and said how many copies would these two games sell, I would say 30k each, but they sold like 20 million. But I think Ghost of Yotei will do well. I think it'll probably sell in line with God of War Ragnarok, I would say, something like that. Like slightly less, accounting for total addressable market with it just being on PS5. But I think it'll do really well. And it's kind of Sony's only real big game going into the holiday season. Yes, they have Death Stranding, but like, well, we love that. That's a niche game. It sold 1 million copies on PlayStation. So, critics love it. We love it. But it's not
1 million geniuses right there, everybody.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. a million geniuses. But Ghost of Yotei is, more palatable for your kind of, more casual consumers. I think it'll completely outsell Assassin's Creed Shadows very quickly, even it just being a one-platform game. And I think it'll come to Steam probably by I'd say Q3, Q4 next year. And so Ghost of Tsushima on Steam sold faster than Assassin's Creed Shadows. And that was Ghost of Tsushima was a port as well. So
there's like 4 years later or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. 4 years later. So there's a lot of like pent up demand, I think. I think Ghost of Tsushima is one of those franchises that Sony did not expect us. Like, it completely like outsold The Last of Us Part 2, for example. And Sony wasn't expecting that. So it's a very important factor for their cap. So yeah, I'd struggle to put a number to it, but it'll sell very well for PlayStation.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, I could ask you about game sales all day, but we won't do that.
So could I. Because you mentioned already a couple things that I want to follow up on, because I think Duskbloods is going to be super interesting to see if Nintendo can support the From Software fan. And I think when you talk about things like Schedule 1, I think about how hard it's got to be to predict anything in the video game market in a world of Pal World and Schedule 1 and things just coming out of freaking nowhere. And talking to the people that depend on you for advice on those kinds of things has to be hard, because who knows? Somebody can look at something that looks exactly like Pal World or Schedule 1 of the outside world. It does exactly that 30,000 that you might anticipate, but nobody can actually distinguish between why that happens and why it didn't.
Yeah, you're so right. Like, you do have some leading indicators like wish lists and, just traction on YouTube and Twitch, etc. But the fact is, you cannot predict a hit in the indie world, especially where, your game's just one stream away from, a big stream picking it up, and then it spreads like wildfire. But like, AA, AAA is more, gaugeable, like, and they are kind of, at Alinea anyway, like our main clients are, big publishers. But we do have some like smaller publishers that are looking to kind of, find the next big thing. And kind of managing their expectations is kind of honestly a bit of a nightmare. They're like, you're a games analyst, you should be able to know what the next Schedule 1 is. And I'm like, dude, I do not have a crystal ball, but here are the Steam wish lists. Here are games that are trending well on Twitch, on YouTube, on Reddit, in the Discord communities. Like, if we look at Schedule 1 last year, it, had these kind of numbers. This game has this. That's all I can tell you. I don't know if, Shroud is going to stream this and it's going to go to the moon. I cannot predict that. But yeah, it is a bit of a tough job at times, but it's fun as well, right? Like, you never know what kind of question you're going to get, and I love it. I love it. It's so fun. Yeah,
cool. I'm fully sympathetic to the clients saying, "How can you not predict this?"
Yeah,
it's like, well,
right.
A lot of other people operating in the world.
Yeah. All right.
Exactly.
Thank you for indulging me on that front.
No, of course.
Let's get back to a game. Death Stranding 2 on the beach. I completed this a couple weeks ago, but I know both of you are playing it. Hoeg, let's start with you.
Sure.
What's going on here?
I am happy to talk about my favorite game of the year.
Ooh,
Death Stranding 2 is the sequel to one of my earlier favorite games of the year, Death Stranding, which came out of nowhere for me in terms of that experience. I talk to people about the experiences I have with stories in video games a lot, but Death Stranding 1 was one of the few games that actually had a kind of emotional effect on me towards the end. And that might be hard to believe for some of you, because certainly early days in Death Stranding 1 are not terribly story-based. They're not terribly emotionally evocative. It's not like Expedition 33, which absolutely 100% you understand is going to be an emotional experience from the moment you hear the title song. Death Stranding 1, I don't think has the same kind of effect, but it finished that way. And then when the sequel project was announced, I said to myself, I'm not sure that's a game that needs a sequel. I'm not sure that's a game that I want to experience more of. It was such a complete kind of story and emotional arc in that game that I wasn't prepared to play a second one. And I think if you're criticizing Death Stranding 2, one thing that you can criticize is that the overall kind of mega structure of the game is what you would expect from a sequelization of a major project, which is you're going across a different continent. You're connecting that different continent in the same way you connected the first continent. And like at that 30,000 foot level, you can dismiss it as typical sequel bait. But everything below that level is an utter transformation of the first game. And while I love the first game, and I'm playing through it again with my daughter because I was talking up the sequel so much in my household, she said, I want to play that first one. And she's enjoying that. It is immediately apparent, especially bouncing between the two games, just how much better basically every mechanic and every physical interaction you are having with actually playing the game Death Stranding 2 is from Death Stranding 1. So everything that Hideo Kojima was focused on making in, say, Metal Gear Solid 5 is present in Death Stranding 2, but with the added kind of emotional resonance of connecting humanity back up and dealing with various questions about what it means to be alive versus dead and what it means to lose something and all these various fun indie movie type questions that he puts into this giant action pastiche. And yet the overall impact of the game is not diminished. Death Stranding 2 is as impactful for me as Death Stranding 1 is. You pack up your PCCs, you're going to build a zipline network across Australia, you're going to turn on your favorite tunes, and you are going to zen out with thoughts about what the human experience means, life, death, and everything in between. So that's all in a AAA blockbuster package in 2025. And I can't speak highly enough about it, except to say if that doesn't sound interesting to you and you sound like a pretentious asshole, Rick, I would also point out that like Metal Gear Solid 5, you're going to be raiding bases that you find on your way of connecting humanity back up together and figuring out the best way that you want to throw up your drone to see where the enemies are, tagging them, finding sniper vantage points and everything else that you enjoy about the Metal Gear series in the middle of all that package delivery. So if you haven't played Death Stranding 2, play it. You will enjoy it. On top of everything that I've already mentioned, it has some of the best graphics I've ever seen. Yeah. So get it. If you're not in the million already, get in the second million. You won't regret it.
Yes. I love Death Stranding 2 as well, Hoeg. I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it so much. And I agree with you. It kind of does like mechanically everything better than the first game.
Everything better.
It doesn't have
the first game and it's like, wow.
I'm sorry. It doesn't have that wow factor like the first game because like as a new thing, but it's like the Uncharted 1 to 2 kind of thing like that, where it's just like dramatically improved in so many ways. To me, I should say. Yeah. But yes, happy to hear it. Rhys, talk to me about Death Stranding 2.
Yeah, I feel the same, honestly. Like, it's mechanically richer, narratively tighter, I would say, because the first game was a bit meandering, in my opinion. Conceptually heavier, of course, like, without spoilers, some dark stuff in there. I think Kojima sometimes struggles to land with it, but mostly he toes the line pretty well. But like, it's one of the most ambitious AAA design statements we've seen in years, like from a design perspective as well, you know. It's almost like a polished second draft of like a thesis or something like that. Like, so yeah, I'm talking like a fucking analyst right now, but you know, the original game, like it did introduce, it was very divisive with the gameplay loop, right? In the terrain navigation, weight balancing, you know, the asynchronous multiplayer stuff, the strand system. It was very friction heavy, felt like quite solitary at times. But I think on the beach, like it makes more like deliberate refinements, right? It's very anti-Kojima in that he listened to feedback and applied it, despite that article a week before saying like, oh, the testers, they liked it too much and I decided to make it shitter. That was just like PR shite in a Kojima way, right?
Yeah.
But like, you know, the environment's shifting in real time, like the weather effects and stuff, like altering your approach. I think they could have been used a bit more, but where they are used, I think it's really done well. It's like, you know, without ruining things, it's for narrative effect. You know, the tools, the vehicles, the ladders, zip lines, especially roads, they're available like so much earlier. So you get straight into it. Like, I would say for people kind of, if you didn't play the first Death Stranding, just, you know, watch a long YouTube video of the lore because you need that lore refresher, that lore.
God, do not rely on the recap of Death Stranding 1.
Yeah. No.
If there is anything that is bad about this game, that recap is the worst.
It's so bad. It misses critical information. But yeah, so watch a YouTube fucking long 2-hour thing. You don't need to play the first game, honestly. Like, I think if you jump in on this one, you can, you know, fill yourself in and have a far better, you know, gameplay experience, to be honest. Because like friction isn't always kind of, you know, synonymous with depth. Like in the first game, I think some of the friction was to the point of frustration. So by easing the player like into like the broader toolbox quicker, you kind of really see what Death Stranding 2 is at its core a lot sooner. Like even like before you reach Australia, you kind of have a lot of the core loop in mind, in a similar way to Breath of the Wild, actually. And the, you know, the first, I forget the name of the first island, but I think Kojima.
Oh, the plateau.
Yes, that's right. The plateau. Yeah. And as well, like the traversal loop was also really criticized for being like slow and cumbersome. Now it feels kind of more modular, right? You kind of like plot your routes, you like adapt to the few dynamic hazards that come. But it's like you kind of react more with like real-time data almost, whereas I guess the first one was not turn-based, but it just felt a little bit more rigid in some ways. Sure. So it's kind of almost like the Tears of the Kingdom to you know, Breath of the Wild in some kind of way. But yeah, you know, sometimes it can go the other way and feel a little too easy because you can just kind of circumvent a lot of the stuff that throws you away. Like Hoeg alluded to, like combat has like had a massive transformation. Like in the first game, it was mostly like reactive, right? You would have to like react if you got spotted by a, you know, BT or whatever. But here it's like it's like a vector of choice. Like you go in like Metal Gear Solid 5, you're like, okay, I'm going to this outpost. I'm going to kit myself out with this, with that. and like stealth and gunplay both have a lot more expanded tool sets. You know, you got the long range trank, you've got like the modular trunks with the auto turrets. Maybe I'm a bit in spoiler territory here, but like, you know, you can like kit yourself out for a certain encounter, but you can also be like, okay, I'm also going to bring this and this and that in, so you can improvise a bit more. It's like so MGS5, like it is like almost the MGS5 sequel more than the Death Stranding sequel in a lot of ways. And like Kojima like compared it to MGS2 in a lot of ways too. Like, you know, the jump from you know, Metal Gear 1 to 2, Metal Gear Solid 1 to 2, I should say, is very similar to DS1 to DS2, because like the you know, the jump in like density of the mechanics is very much there, but you don't actually need to use them in a similar way to Metal Gear Solid 2, right? You could also just, you know, go around that way. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm yapping on too much, so I'll throw.
No. That's what we're supposed to do on this show.
Okay,
we're supposed to yap. Yeah,
okay,
you can talk as much as you want. You don't have to keep talking if you don't want to, but I'm saying feel free to talk if you want to.
Okay, I'll yap a little bit more then. Like, I feel there's a lot more, how can I say, like player expression and systemic emergence in a lot of ways. Like how consistently the design loop like really feeds into each other loop. Like, you know, the skill trees, which weren't really in the first one, you can now kind of like shape your SAM in a way that fits your play style, and you can also like respec to like shift that as well, right? Like if you want to have more traversal, more combat based on the next mission, you can do that. And then
I just wish they had loadouts on that.
Yeah,
I could make it a I go and say, oh, this is a stealth mission, and I go around my whole little skill tree and tweak everything. I say, oh no, I want to blow some stuff up. All right, let's do it again. So give me some loadouts, Hideo. You can do it.
Yeah, I'd love that. Like, that was such a good addition in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 as well. And yeah, it was very missing from this. But, you know, the strand system is deeper as well. Like, you know, like I said in the first one, I felt like, you know, there's a lot of solitude to it. But like the structures left by other players, ramps, generators, shelters, like always there. There's always some kind of like slightly detached, I guess, engagement with other players. It's very visible, very interactive, and it's like
I still love how that design works. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I still love how that design works, because the narrative, of course, is you're trying to connect these segments of the continent, and it always feels like a good thing when you connect somebody up, you get them on the network, and then all the structures pop up that you're going to need, the timefall shelters and everything else. Like, you as the player are fully aligned with Sam and the team to get everybody on the network, because the game design has taught you that that's a good thing for you. Like, I'm always very impressed when the designers of a game can take whatever their story beat is and mix it with what the player is feeling and make those things work together. And I think Death Stranding 1 did this very well in terms of that arduousness, that friction that you describe, Rhys, of we need this to feel like it's really difficult, that you climbed this mountain, that you got to this second point. And I think Death Stranding is one of the few games that really makes that gameplay loop feed into its narrative really well. But I totally understand people saying this is too much at some point and saying, I don't want this kind of friction. Death Stranding 2 continues that, but makes Death Stranding 1 feel like the proof of concept for all these things, so that when you don't need that friction, it is smoothed off. And I do apologize again for jumping on you, so please continue.
No, that was awesome, like a lovely addendum there. But like also to like jump off that, like it does, like there's like mirrors between like the story, what the player is doing, but also the wider like Strand thing, right? Like the game's ongoing commitment to that asynchronous design as a storytelling tool really works well. Like it's like a systematic contribution, not just these cutscenes, not just what you're doing, also what all the other players like in your server are doing to kind of, it really explores those themes of like collective effort and unseen connection, not just in the cutscenes and in the core gameplay, but also with what like the other players are kind of giving to your world and what you're giving to their world. And it's just so like meta, I guess, for lack of a better word. And it's just like, I'm just so glad that like, you know, Sony gave Kojima the blank check twice to just make these two fucking insane games, because they're just something special, and it's something only this medium can provide. And yeah, it's just a joy to play.
Yeah. Let me see here. Ronald Slender wrote in, "Hey Summoners, how do you feel about the choice of Sam being an almost silent protagonist in Death Stranding 2? I get the reasoning for this in DS1, but DS2 is such a personal story for Sam. Him barely reacting to all the physical and emotional torture and revelations in DS2 is something that really took me out of the game. In your experience, is your experience similar, or didn't it bother you at all? So this is kind of interesting. I think, in my opinion, I think Sam is just kind of a stoic, quiet character generally. I think he actually shows a lot of emotion in this game. I don't want to say at what moments or anything like that, but you definitely get a lot of emotional moments, in my opinion, with Sam. But Hoeg, from what you've played so far, how do you feel?
Yeah, I'm pretty far along, but I have not beaten Death Stranding 2. I will say I agree. It is that kind of fistful of dollars, man walks into a town with a mission and is going to get it done. I do think there are certain points in time in the first, I think I've played it 70, 75 hours at this point, of the game where I feel like the inciting event, the reason why we're going on this trip is maybe not as fully reflected in the characterization of Sam as I would expect. I think that's honestly part of the story as we get further on towards the end. But I can certainly understand someone saying, it doesn't appear to be matching the tone I would expect for the reason why we're doing all this. And that's as detailed as I think I can get in this space.
Sure. Yeah. Rhys, do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I do. Like, I feel similarly to how I feel about like Kratos, right? Like, yes, he's a bit of like, he's very stoic. Sam and Kratos are both very stoic, unfazed. You know, they're just there to do a job and they'll do it. But in those moments of like, poignant moments of sadness, which we won't talk about too much, like the contrast between, I don't know, just a very stoic dude and just one tear, falling down their cheek, like, it is meaningful and it does hit home. So like, if those moments hit you with Kratos in God of War and God of War Ragnarok, they'll land with you here too. And I think it is a conscious choice, honestly, as well. If the protagonist were overly emotional, it would just take you away from it, right? Because like also you kind of want to project your feelings about the situation onto what's happening. And I think, he got Norman Reedus in the game because he's like quote unquote cool, not because of his like, emotional acting range, let's be honest. So like there's that like element of it as well. But I think, the contrast works well from like stoic and low to slightly emotional. It like has that payoff, I guess.
Yeah. All right. This is from Trayloned. Hey, Summon Crew. As someone who took his time to 5-star all preppers and such in DS1 as the game went on, but with with 2, I said, you know what? Let me mainline the story. I honestly think 2 is actually a better way of playing, as you get the best gear, the awesome story done, and are left afterwards to complete it as you please. Are you guys also feeling this way? I love DS2, but also came to the point like, yep, give me the story beats and let's knock this out. Cheers. Hoeg, I'm curious what you think of this.
Yes, as the person that just said he mainlined Donkey Kong too much. So I will say that in Death Stranding 2, it was immediately apparent to me very early on that this was going to really work for me, that this was going to be one of those experiences. And then I tend to slow things up when I feel that. I tend to say, all right, we're going to stretch this out. We're going to experience this for as long as reasonably possible where we don't lose the thread and then don't finish the game. So I've been slow rolling it. As I said, I've started playing Death Stranding 1 again with my daughter who asked about it, and that really slowed up the Death Stranding 2 progression. But overall, one of the things I would say to Death Stranding 2's credit over Death Stranding 1 that I haven't said already is that depth of the playing space that has been built into this sequel allows for many more valuable rewards to come out of the star system. If you haven't played Death Stranding at all, then you should know that when you connect these various places up around the continent, that you can essentially keep doing missions for any place that you've connected, and you get more stars of their happiness, like a Yelp rating or a Uber rating or something like that. And at every star level, they're going to give you something. And in the first one, not that exciting. They give you a super ladder, they give you some cosmetics, whatever it might be. In this second one, it seems like it's always a surprise. It's always Christmas. I don't know what you've got that you're going to give me, and it really feels good. That said, I am not a completionist on these games. I feel like that slows down momentum too much going towards the end game. And so I basically take every place that I'm connecting up to at least 3 stars, but probably more likely 4 stars. So I do like a loop of standard contracts to get people a little bit higher, because I feel like much like grinding in an RPG. I can maybe get that gun that they don't know that I'm going to have for that next boss, and move forward that way, whatever it is that I'm looking for. And so I'm kind of halfway between, not a completionist, but not just kind of zipping through these areas. And that's how I've been playing Death Stranding 2. That's really worked for me. But like all open world games, I think there comes a time where you say, all right, I'd like to move things forward. And to its credit, for the games that really work well in that kind of open world scope, every time you decide you're going to move forward, you're going to go to the main line set of missions, you're going to get that next cutscene. I think Death Stranding 2 delivers in spades. Like, you get there and you're like, that was awesome. That was well worth it. I was at breakfast the other day, a couple weeks ago, and I told my daughter and my wife that was one of the coolest cutscenes I have ever seen. And my wife, bless her heart, says, all right, tell me about that. And I'm like, are you sure? It's like, yes, no, I want to know what was so cool about this cutscene. And I described it to her. And she's like, that does sound cool. I was like, you would not find it cool. I appreciate this effort, honey. But no, that was for me only. And I really love the game for that. One of my biggest complaints that people have heard me say in various other outlets, I don't think I've said it here before, is that one of my major problems I have with Rebirth is that when I want to press on and advance the story advancements in that game are not as impactful or interesting as I would have them be when I decide to hit that button. So back to the mini games for me in Rebirth. In Death Stranding, awesome cutscene, and I'm ready to do another loop of various people living out in the boonies.
Mm-mm. What about you, Rhys? When you're playing DS2, are you kind of like, I got to 5-star all this stuff first? Or you just kind of go with the flow?
I go with the flow. Like, I found a good loop with it where I would get kind of everybody to at least 2 stars, obviously. Like when I'm at my like core gaming time, like on the TV. And then I would, like, later that evening or whatever, like, go onto my portal and then do the kind of, back and forth, like, just kind of grinding stuff, like when I'm on the couch next to my girlfriend when we're watching a show. And I think that worked really well. Like, I can get, like, the emotional resonance in the story and the cutscenes and stuff like that when I'm going through. And then, have the addendum of the more passive stuff when I'm just, like, doing something else, honestly. And that's worked super well. But usually I try to get them to 3, if not, like Hoeg said, 4 stars as well. Sometimes 5 stars. Like, I was cheeky and was like, I did Google, like, which people should I get 5 stars on for the best items? Because, I wanted the good shit. So I did do that. And I will get 5 stars on those people. But, yeah, in general, it's just 3 or 4. But thank fuck for the PlayStation Portal. Like, I have to travel a lot for my job, so I'm really hoping that PlayStation does come out with that, like, native port, like PlayStation as well, because the Steam Deck and the Switch 2, those like on-the-go companion devices really do help me, like, as a adult, I guess. And I think a lot of people would also benefit from that, especially if they're commuting a lot, like I am.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, final game on the list for this episode, Ooblets. Oh, you've been playing this. Talk to me.
By far the biggest game on the list, right? Yeah. So I think people by now know that I have a pretty idiosyncratic taste in video games overall. We just talked about Become the Moon earlier in this episode. Ooblets, I think, is a little bit of a bigger indie type title. People might remember it from the news a couple of years back as one of the earliest games to take heat for being an Epic Games Store exclusive for a time. But the long and the short of this game is that it is a cozy game. You have a farm. You grow a bunch of buddies that are going to follow you around, the Ooblets, and they are going to help you do things for the town in which you live, as well as the continent in which that town resides. And in order to help you, they are going to engage in dance battles with other teams of Ooblets and other people that have them. So, like Pokemon, but without fighting, instead you're going to get into dance battles, and those dance battles are going to be, like Become the Moon, I told you I like them, done in a card-based format. You're going to have dance moves that allow you to build up your dance score and otherwise increase your hype or fluster your opponent. And that's the main way in which you're going to interact with other Ooblets and other kind of antagonist forces in this game. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up here is I do play a lot of these farming games. I told you my daughters are really into Stardew Valley. They're really into cozy games overall. And I'm always looking for kind of new takes on that genre. And Ooblets is not a new game. It's a couple of years old, but it works really well on my Switch too. And I wanted to call it out because it is the type of cozy game that I think could work for more of the, I hate the term, but let's use hardcore gamer audience, which is to say that one of the problems I personally have with cozy games as a genre is that they sometimes seem unfocused or undirected. You're going to wake up, you're going to tend to your crops, you're going to move on, but you don't exactly have a mission statement for what you're trying to pursue. Ooblets has a really smart design in that it has a series of tasks that it gives you for the mayor, each of which, when you accomplish them, are going to open up an entirely new kind of avenue of playing the game. So one of the tasks you complete is to fix up the dance barn, for instance. And when you fix it up, then you go into the dance barn and you're going to see that there's a dance tournament that you can enter into every day for different awards. And those awards are going to help you build up other parts of your farm or other things that you're doing in the game, including fixing other things outside the dance barn. And each of the tasks that you get from the mayor are going to open up something like that. You're going to earn the ability to travel across the continent and visit different places. You're going to earn the ability to have what amounts to personal affinities with everybody, like a social link system that doesn't exist when you start the game. And when I first played this, when it first came out, I think it was on Game Pass. It might still be on Game Pass at this point in time. I thought that the game was a little bit shallow. That was my initial reaction, because all of the elements that make the game not shallow are really hidden behind that system. So all I would tell people is that you're going to want to do at least a few mayor tasks, what are called tinsel tasks, and we can certainly talk about the indiness of this game when we get there, that you're going to want to do a couple of those tasks because the whole game, the entire design, lives behind that however many tasks there are, 50, 100. And so you're going to want to do some of those things. But the other thing I would mention to people is that I find the game adorable and amusing and cute and all these various things. Some people are going to find it overly twee or indie or whatever word you want to use to describe these things. Everybody has a goofy name. You're going to be making goofy foods with goofy fruits and goofy vegetables. And if you can't stand that, Ooblets is not going to change for you. So don't look at the screenshots, look at some of the dialogue boxes and decide whether you can take that level of indiness. But I have found that I have a fairly high tolerance for indie character TM and indie writing. And so I find Ooblets to be comforting in its adorableness after a certain time. And as a gamer, I find it to be a very directed experience that, even though it looks super cozy and it looks chill, is very much not. You constantly have a list of 100 things that you could be doing. You're constantly going to feel like you're not doing enough. So much like real life, you're just going to constantly feel like you're behind the 8 ball, which is not my favorite video game experience. And yet I've still found it to be very calming during my workday or afterwards to say, I'm going to go spend some time with my Ooblets. You're going to get ridiculous music, ridiculous names, and in an experience that allows you to have things like card-based battles amongst your oobs as you go through this entire process. Each Ooblet has their own signature moves that you earn by increasing their experience, and those signature moves can come up in the deck for when you're playing in your dance battle, so you can set up all sorts of different strategies and techniques. Much more complicated and complex than the game, I think, looks like it would want or need, but it certainly works very well for what I'm looking for out of a game. And so I was surprised by this one. I wanted to mention it, much like Become the Moon, because I hadn't heard a lot of people talking about this even when it released. And I have a great deal of experience going through all sorts of these different cozy type games, and this was one that stood out to me.
Yeah. What would you say, I guess, right now is the ratio of, your cozy life sim stuff and the dance battles?
Well, the good news, if you're not interested in dance battling, is that you can control how much you want to do it. It is not like those early Pokemons where if anybody ever connects with your eyes, then you're going to get into a fight. But in that control, if you want to go do dance battles, they're not super short affairs. It takes a while to get the points needed to win one. And so you can spend most of your time doing them. I would say that the bulk of your time in this game, if you aren't seeking out dance battles, is probably going to be in farming maintenance, in earning gummies, which is the currency within the land of Oob. And on top of that, earning wishies. This is the kind of vocabulary I want people to understand is in Ooblets. But you're earning gummies and wishies, and those are two different economies that are getting you different things to increase your ability to run your farm, ultimately run your town, and do other things that I honestly don't want to spoil, that are other aspects that are all within this game that are fun to discover as you go through.
Okay. Don't want to spoil, huh? Yeah, I'm looking at the trailer and they're showing a lot of different locations, which I'm kind of surprised about.
Yeah, there are a
Some
lot of
mini
different locations.
games, like
Lots
on
of
your
mini games.
phone. Okay.
Oh,
There's lots of mini games to interact with, lots of different stuff to do. It is a really big design for a game that seems this small.
Okay. Interesting.
yeah, there's a lot going on in it. Like I'm getting like Viva Pinata vibes, Pokemon, Animal Crossing. Like I've been dying to like go back to Viva Pinata. Does this game kind of like scratch that itch?
I actually think it has a lot in common with Viva Pinata, so that's a good poll.
Okay. Might have to let Micah know then.
Yeah, you've got a certain number of Ooblets that are going to follow you around that you can use for your dance battles, which are called your follow buddies. And then you've got a certain amount of Ooblets that you can support on your farm that you either can support directly or by building Oob coops that are called home buddies. And one of the main ways that you earn money, certainly early on, before you've gotten other opportunities to earn money, is to scan each Ooblet at each rarity in the learnery in order to give that information, essentially fill out your Pokedex for this purpose. And there's a certain amount of fun in just seeing which Ooblets are in your town today and targeting the uncommon Oobs and getting more gummies for that process. The loop there is that the Ooblets will only dance against you and you can only earn the seed to grow them if you have something that they want. And each Ooblet type will have the same desire at all times. So you know that if I grow 3 sweet beaties, then you're going to be able to dance with these specific Ooblets. But as they get more complicated in different areas, you're going to have to grow a bunch of different things and cook them into a specific treebee, which I think is the word for treat. And only when you have enough of those can you dance with another specific Ooblet. So this loop kind of circles around itself. All the systems work together in the way that I like when I'm looking at video games. And it's really very fulfilling as a video game of this type.
How's like the management aspect of your town or whatever like that? Can you send Ooblets to do stuff for you, or do you have to kind of monitor everything yourself?
The basic function of building up your town and doing things within it is that you'll have a task that will have a basket out in front of it that is asking for certain things to be put in it. So you'll be collecting planklets and nernies and all these other things that aren't going to make any sense because they're just random Ooblets words. And you're putting them in that box in order to build up the clubhouse, build up the dance barn, build up whatever else that you're building. And that's the main way that you're interacting with building up the town. In addition, every time you visit the town, there's going to be certain villagers, certain townspeople that have dots above their heads that mean that they have additional dialogue and that you can increase your affinity with them by talking to them every day. And so you're going to go in, you're going to run in, you're going to collect cans, clean up the town, and you're going to reconstitute them into fishing bait. You're going to talk to everybody that has a dot over their head. You might get into some dance battles. You might go to the dance barn. You're going to do this on a fairly regular basis. And then as you gain levels, you earn more tinsel tasks, and that's going to open up more aspects of the game. At the same time, you're going to have essentially dailies that are going to earn you a different currency called wishies, and you can spend those at the wishy well in order to earn things like recipes and other increases to your ability to play the game. And yes, you will feel like a silly person saying any of this either in your head or out loud, but that's part of the charm.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, it looks kind of delightful, actually.
It is delightful. That's a perfect word.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice, Hoeg. Yeah, you always got these deep cut indie games that I just pass over.
I don't blame you. Part of the...
I mean, there's just too much shit, but yeah, that's why.
Part of the process, though, is there's not only just too much shit, there's too much shit. Like, you have to go and you have to sift some.
That's true. Yeah, you got to dig deep sometimes.
Ooblets is one I can entirely recommend. I have been surprised at how much I've enjoyed this personally.
Okay. Is this only on PC or is this on everything now?
I am playing it on the Switch 2.
Okay.
I cannot guarantee... It's a Switch 1 version using Switch 2 interoperability. I can't guarantee that it functions great on the Switch. It's doing some stuff, but it definitely functions fine on the Switch 2.
Okay. All right, let's end the show with some write-ins from the audience, some questions. If you want to write into this show, I post a thread every Saturday on our Patreon calling for your submissions, so keep an eye out there. This is from Western J. Hey, Summoners, I've got a question for Rhys. In your interview with Colin, you talked about the dark future of Xbox and how things are starting to slowly unravel. as a big Xbox guy from the start, do you see Xbox actually going through with making the next console, even with all the layoffs and bad morale there? And even if they did end up releasing this console in a few years, do you think people will be excited by it? Will it be a total sales flop? I know we are a few years away, but I would just want to know your insight. Thanks. I'll hang up and listen. All right. Don't be afraid to answer this question. Everyone who's a freak about console war stuff, stand down. Just relax.
Yeah. No, I mean, come at me. No, don't.
Don't. Yeah.
No. But no, yeah, I know. But like, I mean, the Microsoft are going to release another Xbox, right? They've confirmed it even beyond the ROG Ally X and S.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everything we've seen from leaks and everything we've seen from Xbox's strategy point to the next Xbox console essentially being a PC, if not a half step towards a PC, like a Trojan horse to Xbox really becoming the third-party publisher that they really want to be. But they need to transition away from, the console fan base, honestly, which is what they've been doing for the past couple of years due to a number of things, right? The Game Pass subscriptions saturating. They didn't reach that 100 million that they wanted to reach. Like, the mobile stuff didn't go as well with the cloud gaming. Microsoft is now more interested in like generative AI than SaaS and like consumer stuff, honestly. So Xbox is just all the layoffs and everything were just due to the parent company shift in strategy, subscriptions not doing that well, and honestly just kind of like inertia from the Xbox One generation, where they just completely messed up by launching more expensive than the PS4, doing the Kinect stuff. And they've been, playing second fiddle to PlayStation ever since. And Game Pass was awesome. There are some amazing Xbox games coming, but consumers beyond the core Xbox fans aren't interested in the Xbox console anymore. And, the writing's on the wall there. And Xbox leadership and Microsoft leadership pulling their strings is shifting them away from that more to something that's more lucrative. We talked about Forza Horizon 5 sales on PlayStation at the front of the show. And, they're generating so much revenue on PlayStation and on Steam that is where the future of Xbox is, a third party. So, Microsoft won't really market the next Xbox as a PC, but in terms of functionality, it'll be closer to a PC than ever, if not just a full PC that integrates deeply with Windows, supports the cloud hybrid gaming stuff. We can even see Xbox trying to shift its SKUs on the console to like the Play Anywhere thing, even beyond Game Pass, where you get a license for Xbox PC as well. You can see all these kind of things playing out. So yeah, I mean, Xbox will release another console. It'll just cater to core fans. So in that respect, it'll be a flop. It won't sell as well as, the Switch 2 or the PS5, PS6. But Xbox will continue to be a thing. They'll be a third-party publisher. They have some of the best IP and some of the most talented studios, even after the layoffs. And the layoffs sucked, I think. Phil Spencer's been getting a lot of shit for them, but I don't think he mandated this. This came from above. They said, you need to lay off this many people, so do it. And yeah, I mean, it still sucks that he did it, and it's a dick move no matter how you look at it. But yeah, Xbox is a third-party publisher. There will be another Xbox. It won't be a success in the way that we think of a success, but it will be a transition into them being what they clearly want to be. And yes, some of the Xbox fans will struggle with that transition, and they are struggling with that transition, candidly. But I mean, yeah, it sucks. And I think I would prefer there to be another Xbox because competition in the console space is great. But I mean, even PlayStation is slowly kind of repositioning itself towards Steam and hedging its bets there. The game time, like the PlayStation releases on Steam, are like the time between PS5 and Steam is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. We've got Helldivers coming to Xbox next month. And the writings are like not on the wall for console. I think Nintendo will always be a holdout there, but I think things are...
They sure will be, yeah.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah.
long after we're gone, there'll be a Switch like 13 or whatever. But like Hoeg like hit the nail on the head earlier, when he said that, younger people as well are just kind of expecting platforms to be more like open and everything working everywhere. It's just the way that the tide is going. And yeah, Xbox is kind of rushing towards it. PlayStation will go there. Nintendo probably won't, but maybe in 100 years. But yeah, I think that's my take on it. And I'm an Xbox fan. I fucking love Xbox. I'm pumped to play Gears Reloaded next month. But yeah, the writing's on the wall. I think Xbox is a third-party publisher now, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Hoeg, any thoughts about this?
Xbox overall? I mean,
yeah, sure.
I think I said them mostly on the Defining Duke episode I was on. But yes, I'm obviously of the belief, like Rhys is, that Xbox is fundamentally changing. The console space is fundamentally changing. Microsoft did leap into it out of desperation, if anything else, from the position that they had in the plastic box sales under TVs division, not winning against PlayStation. Sony is also moving there because they can't afford to not pay attention to where the people are going with this kind of thing. So Sony has the advantage right now, but the way business works is that they're constantly evaluating what's next, right? And Sony winning a console war that isn't a war anymore doesn't really matter for the next generation or years down the line. So they're also thinking about how they can be involved in video gaming in the future. And I think, honestly, the world of video games looks a lot different not so long from now than it does in the world that people grew up in. Now, I am not as scared about that as some people, certainly some people who leave me DMs, are about that future, because I grew up when Philips was making consoles, and when there was a 3DO and a CDI and a TurboGrafx and all these other attempts from tech companies to get involved in the video game industry, many of which were my favorite consoles of all time, because you might not realize it if you've just grown up in the tripolar video game universe, but there are a lot of different ways to make video games. There's a lot of different things that consoles could do that maybe they will in the future. If Microsoft steps back and takes that third-party publisher role, that I agree with Rhys, seems to be where they want to go and in what direction they want to go, although I'm not as convinced that Microsoft ever has a medium to long-term direction that they stick with as much as they probably should. So we'll see where they wind up in the long term as well. But I think there could be cool entrants into the space that do new and different things that maybe we're not expecting. And I find that to be exciting. Now, that's with the disclaimer that, look, I'm a venture capital and mergers and acquisitions lawyer. I am constantly involved in exciting technological changes. And that's why I got into this business in the first place. So I'm a techno optimist. And I am intrigued by what the dynamic video game industry has to offer us in the future. And I'm not specifically tied to the Xbox or the PlayStation or even the Nintendo, although I think they do the best with what the video game industry allows them to do. So I find this to be a moment of excitement more than sadness. That's separate from layoffs and everything else. I've talked at length on Defining Duke about the way I think that management, which is the middle management layer between the board and Satya Nadella and everyone else and the video game developers, screwed up the way this all went down. But if we take that as a given that this had to go down this way because Microsoft is changing focus, I don't think it's anything to cry about that Microsoft is changing focus. That's what I have to say on that.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, we shall see. A couple years, it's going to be an interesting time. I'll say that. Gaming again. All right, this is from the Diddler. All right. Hey, Kuchiyose no Jitsu people. What are some games you appreciate more now than when they launched? I've been going back and playing Spider-Man 2. It's great. When the game launched, I just remember trying to complete it as fast as possible. I noticed that playing games with that mindset really hampers my experience. Another game I appreciate more now is Final Fantasy X-2. Gameplay is so good, but the story and music are still weak. All right. Any games you appreciate more? They said story and music are still weak.
The music of 10-2 is not weak. Come on now.
I don't remember it that well. I remember the story being pretty weak. Gameplay, no. Gameplay was great. Hoeg, what's something you enjoy more now than you did when you first played it?
The rubric I use for this kind of question is what still sticks in my head? What do I refuse to delete when I need more space on my hard drive? And the game that has survived the longest, a little bit unexpectedly for me, is Final Fantasy 16. Like, I am on the record in various places on the internet saying I am not on board with this action bent for Final Fantasy. I am still not. I don't think that they are best in class in action. I don't think they should try to be. But that story, that codex, the world that they built has stuck with me more than many other games of this generation. It's going to wind up being one of my favorite RPGs of this bit of video gaming history. And I would not have told you that after I immediately finished playing it. In fact, I know I didn't say that on the spoiler cast I'm on this network. So Final Fantasy 16 is the one that I would say I appreciate much more now. And I've played it now probably 4 or 5 times. I'm really impressed by some of the character writing and how adult these characters actually interact. That it's very difficult to kind of see when you're expecting a video game storyline. And it seems like not much is happening for long stretches of time in Final Fantasy 16. In particular, shout out, keep it up to Jill from Final Fantasy 16, who is a tremendous character that I did not give one iota of the credit for in terms of writing when I first finished the game. So Final Fantasy 16 is my answer there.
Yeah, okay. Rhys, anything for you?
Yeah, for me, it's probably Death Stranding, actually, the original. So I played it when it came out, 2019, was it? Yeah, 2019, I think. And couldn't get on with it. Like, I just found that it was too slow. Like, the story wasn't resonating with me. And so I dropped off, I think, after about 10 hours. Like, I really tried to get through it. And I think part of it as well was me, like, you know, wanting like the next Metal Gear, the next Kojima game. And I had an idea in my head of what this game is going to be, and it just wasn't that. And there was no shortage of games to play when the first Death Stranding came out. So I just like bounced off. And then when the director's cut came out, I jumped back on it. And this was after the pandemic then, actually. So, and there's a lot of like themes in the first Death Stranding that like, I don't know, come across a little bit differently after the pandemic, like, you know, social connection, isolation, things like that. And I also had like a death in the family that is kind of like similar to something that happens in the first one. So that also resonated. So on the second playthrough, or the second attempt, I should say, with also the quality of life improvements with the director's cut, which also like helped in some way with the friction. I loved it. Like, yes, it was still slow. Yes, a lot of the problems I had with the first one, it not being quite as action oriented as I wanted, for example, and it being quite rigid in some ways. But the themes of connection and, you know, togetherness and just the story in general, I just got along with a lot more after the pandemic, and maybe with a more mature mindset. I don't know, although probably not. I'm just as immature as I was back then. But yeah, I just saw the game in a new perspective, and kind of the story connecting with me more kind of pushed me to, like, you know, push through the initial friction in the game to get to like the meat of it and the good stuff, if you will. So yeah, I really love that game now, and I love Death Stranding 2 even more because it kind of just gets straight to it kind of thing. But that's the main one. And also the Guitar Hero, this is a shorter one. Like, I played it over my cousin's house and thought it was like the fucking lamest thing ever, like a plastic guitar, like playing Avenged Sevenfold songs. I was like, well, this is so lame. And then in university, we got Rock Band in our dorm, and we just like would play the shit out of it like every Friday. And I was like, you know what, these like plastic instruments aren't too bad, and they won me over in the end. So yeah, 2 different ones there with Guitar Hero, Rock Band, and Death Stranding.
Yeah. For me, I was very divided on. So for me, it was MGS2. When MGS2 first came out, I was like, who the fuck's Raiden? Where's Snake? I don't want to be Raiden. Give me Snake back. I was pissed off about that. But over time, I'm just kind of like, yeah, MGS2 is pretty cool. I like Raiden. Raiden is cool as fuck, but he's not Solid Snake, all right? Let's be clear about that. Let's just be clear. But I remember definitely at the time being disappointed that I was Raiden for most of that game. Yeah, also, dude, stand down. I got to give a quick stand down to the Sacred Symbols boys about Metal Gear Solid 4. I heard they were talking shit about MGS4. Stand down, all 3 of you. Sort your life out.
Do it.
Sorry, what were you going to say, though, Rhys?
Yeah, I was just saying, like, I think a lot of people felt the same about Raiden because of that, like, red hair and
Yeah.
Aaron with the demo in the Zone of the Enders, right? Like, where you're playing as Metal Gear on the, is it on the tanker? As a Snake, sorry. So you're just like, oh yeah, I'm going to be Snake. Like, this is what this game's going to be. You buy it, and then you're this, like, weird, like, young, white-haired guy. You're like, what the hell is
Doing
this?
cartwheel flips and shit naked. Yeah. I'm like, what's happening
Oh,
here?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because it's like Solid Snake is one of the coolest video game characters of all time. And you just took him away from me. I was like, no. But it all makes sense in the end. But yeah, I just remember at the time, dude, that was a big controversy. All right.
That's
This
all
is
on the
from
marketing. Like I
Yes.
remember the marketing for that game hiding
Yes.
the ball there, and even the intro of that game has all the cool snake scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the tanker and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, true. And The Last of Us 2 did a similar kind of thing, right? Like in its trailers, it like
Yes, they did.
replaced Jesse as Joel and everything. So you got to imagine that Naughty Dog took us some cues from Kojima on that.
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. I mean, at least Raiden didn't hit Snake over the head with a club. So progress.
Yeah.
All right, this is from Antonio Rodriguez. Hey, fellas, have you guys ever experienced a weird coincidence in real life, can't speak, that made you think of something from a game? For example, I bought a Death Stranding hat last week with the Bridges logo embroidered on it. Nice. Wouldn't you know that when I finally left my house wearing it for the first time yesterday, it started raining its ass off? Coincidence? I think not. Thanks, and keep on keeping on. Oh, that's an interesting question. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. What about you, Hoeg? Can you think of anything?
I don't think so. I don't think I keep track of coincidences so much. I remember back in the late 90s or mid 90s that I was deeply invested in playing StarCraft. And I remember leaving my house at one point and thinking that the sky looked like a rendering from a StarCraft movie. But I don't think that constitutes a coincidence as much as just me being a weirdo kid.
Yeah, it's close enough. We'll take what we can get. Rhys, can you think of anything? Any weird coincidences? I know it's like a really hard thing to think of. I just thought this question is really funny.
Yeah, it's a good one. Like I don't know, like I can't think of anything. Maybe I'll think of something and I'll reply like in the thread or something, but nothing's coming to mind with that one.
Yeah. But anyways, Antonio, sick hat, dude.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, I want like a drawbridge something now too. It's like
that'd be sick.
Death Stranding merch. Those jackets that he was selling that they wear like they're like
nice.
$2,000 or something like that. It's like, it's cool.
It's not that cool.
Yeah, not that cool for me. But it is cool. All right, final writing here is from Crapton Bacard. Hey, Summoners, hope you're having a great gaming summer. My question is for Hoeg, and it is simply, how do you do it? How do you have the time? You work as a lawyer with your own firm, you make YouTube videos, you're on all these podcasts, you have 2 kids, and yet you still have all the time to game. It's crazy to me how many games or new games you've always playing. So how do you do it? What's your secret? I'm 44 and I have 2 kids and work full time. I barely have any time to game. Maybe a couple of hours a night after the kids are in bed if I'm lucky. And I play way more than most of my dad friends. So please give me some advice to the rest of us busy dads that love gaming but don't have the management skills you seem to have. Thanks. And while I may not agree with your take on Expedition 33, I'll defend your death. I'll defend to the death your right to say it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Certainly, I did not mean to offend as many as I appeared to with my Expedition 33 take. And I appreciate your kind words. I think the answer to this in reality is I don't think I do it. I am constantly knocking myself out and recovering for large periods of time. But the more realistic answer is that, and this is going to sound cloying, but I have a fantastic partner in life that makes all of that happen for me, that helps me get through my day, running the firm, taking care of the kids, and all of the rest that you guys get to see on the internet and outside of it. And so I could not do one bit of it without her. I think you've also heard the other solution I have, which is I incorporate my kids in a lot of my game time.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, I get a lot more time to game than if they weren't incorporated in that at all. And they are excited. We have good family gaming time together. And what you probably don't know about that time is it's a very active time. It's not passively watching. It's not just kind of zoning out to the video game. People are constantly in the room saying things about the characters, the story beats, the gameplay elements, whatever it is. and I'm engaging in that conversation at the same time. So if I'm giving myself credit, I find that to be very quality family time. And my kids are fantastic. So that's not going to work for every family. I know that already just from my brother's family. He doesn't get that same time and experience that I do. My kids just happen to be ones that are very invested and very interested in having that time with me. And I'm very grateful for it. So outside of that, I don't feel like I've done a good job of keeping up the YouTube channel since my medical event in 2022. And I would like to do that more. In fact, I have one planned very soon. And I'm trying to get more up to one video at least a week on my own channel. One of the things that LSM and Colin in particular have been so great about in my life is that it has been a lot easier for me to be a guest appearer on a conversational podcast like this one than it has been to go from soup to nuts, 0 to 60 on prepping, planning, and executing a full video on my own channel. That's just another league of effort and difficulty. And so I'm very appreciative of Colin for making this platform available to me and welcoming me with open arms. And I'm very appreciable to people like Brad for taking the impetus, making the rundowns, saying, Rick, what games do you want to talk about, and helping move the whole thing along, and having that part of the labor experience not on my shoulders, but on his. So that's how it works, is if you actually look at my output, like in 2022, I was averaging something like 14 episodes of content a week. Wow. And yes, I put myself in the hospital, so don't do that. Don't do that, kids.
Don't do that.
But I was averaging about 14 videos a week. I was deep into the Depp v. Heard trial. I had all my collaborations with my lawyer friends. I started a Dungeons and Dragons show. I started Hangouts and Headlines to go with virtual legality. I was running the firm in our most profitable year at the time, and my reward was a hospital stay. So I will tell you, on the one hand, I am wired to work. Like, that's just how I am built, and I can do it to my detriment. And honestly, the hardest thing as part of my rehabilitation the last couple of years has been getting over the feeling that I'm being lazy or not doing enough when I need to take that rest, when I need to take that beat. And so if I can convey anything to anybody my age or younger, and maybe older if you're watching the show, is that you have to give yourself the grace and the permission to go say, I'm not going to be fully functional. I'm not going to be able to do the things I want to do tomorrow if I don't take a minute today. And I've been working on that now for years, and I'm not good at it. I will tell you right now, I'm going to get done with this video. I'm going to sit for like a half minute, and I'm going to say, why am I not doing something? Like that's how I'm wired. And try to tamp down on that. Try to push down on that, if I can recommend that. Otherwise, incorporate the kids into the gaming as much as you can. Sometimes they're going to hear an F-bomb when you don't expect it. Sometimes they're going to see some stuff in the 100 line that you're not anticipating. But for the most part, everything's going to be okay. And I enjoy that time with my kids as much or more than other things that I have done with them in the past. So you can incorporate that into your life, especially if you have a great partner to help. If you don't, I feel bad for you because that's really what makes it all possible for me.
Yeah, definitely. Rhys, you have a day job, which is still video games, but how do you balance all that kind of stuff and playing games? Any tips?
Yeah, I don't sleep much, and I sacrifice
that seems
my
like an answer from
sacrifice my personal relationships. But no. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't have kids. Like, my partner, like Hoeg, she's like very understanding, and yeah, she lets me play games like a lot here. Like, I usually play in my office like a couple hours a day. And then when we're hanging out, like, I'll use the Steam Deck or the Switch 2 or the Portal portably on the couch and play that way. I commute a lot, so I can play like Switch 2 and Steam Deck stuff there. But yeah, I guess the main thing is like I don't have kids, so like I do have that time, and I work from home as well. So like I do have to commute for work for like client meetings and fly for like conferences and things like that. But like usually I wake up at like 6 or 7. We'll play games for a couple of hours before work. I'll usually get half an hour in at lunchtime and then eat my lunch in the other half hour, play for a couple hours after work. And yeah, that's enough for me usually to cover the games I want to cover for like my job and also like for my leisure as well. But, you know, sometimes I will do the odd, 3 hours night sleep playing Tony Hawk's until 5 a.m. my body can still manage that. But still, good advice from Hoeg not to like push too far and end up in the hospital, because things can get carried away, right? Like, and then you just snowball, and then before you know it, you're in trouble.
Don't be like Hoeg is my best advice.
In this instance. In every other instance, Hoeg, you're legend. So
yeah, true. All right, boys, that's it. Another episode in the books. Hoeg, Rhys, thank you for joining me. Rhys, where can people find you if they want to follow you and all that good stuff?
You can find me on Twitter or Blue Sky. I'm Super Rhys on both. I'm more active on LinkedIn, honestly. Like, that's where you can like read my content, because I'm B2B analyst. So that's where you'll find like my blog and stuff like that. I do a newsletter called Alinea Insight. It's a Substack. It's basically just like a lot of the sales data that we were discussing earlier. I do like top 10 lists, new releases, games to watch out for, just a bunch of like metric driven stuff. But, I love games. I'm obsessed with games. So I will always have my subjective opinion in there as well. Because like Hoeg said earlier, this, it's all subjective when it comes to opinions on games. But yeah, you can find me there. And thanks, Brad, for inviting me to the show. It's been a pleasure. It's been great to talk to you both. Like, didn't want to fanboy at the start, but I've been big fans of both of yours for Hoeg yours a few years since during the pandemic. I found virtual legality and really loved it, especially your coverage around the Activision Blizzard stuff. It helped me a lot for my job, because I was working like on a consulting project on that topic. So thank you, number one, for that.
Thank you.
But also from like an intellectual curiosity, like your videos and content have been amazing. Really, really loved it. You as well, Brad. Like, I've loved like seeing your journey from like game trailers to Easy Allies now to
so you've been around for a long time.
Like game trailers was like every day. Like in university, I would just like watch all the trailers after uni and like the podcast and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been great to see you land like on this show, like doing what you do best, like unfettered, just like able to do your thing. So thank you both for this conversation.
Wow, thank you.
Loved it.
What a nice guest. Wow.
This is very nice. I don't know what to say about that.
We got gassed up real nice. That was good.
Oh, okay. We'll fuck you both. Let's even it out a little bit.
Perfect. Yeah. There you go. Awesome. Yeah, you were great on the show. I'm happy to have you on here again in the future, Rhys, whenever you want. It's good stuff. Hoeg, of course. We go way back, Hoeg, when I think about it. Easy Allies days for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Early sponsor of Easy Allies.
Yeah, that's right. Good stuff. Yeah, I remember you sponsoring the Easy Living. I remember you sponsored one of those at least.
I did. I tried to sponsor two. That was a couple of communications with Brandon back in the day. But yes, the idea that we had was, speaking of my girls, my girls loved watching the Easy Living, but they were always interested in what time it was in the house, because this was a marathon stream where the guys would live in a beach house and they would just keep streaming games for like 3 solid days. And they would ask me what time it was. I said, I didn't know. And so I asked Brandon Jones of Easy Allies back in the day if I could sponsor a clock in the corner. And much to my amusement, the script for this was decided to say that they would announce it every hour, that it was the Hoeg Law Business Law Clock.
That's
just quite the phrase.
Every hour too. That's brutal.
Yep. So I've got recordings. I've got recordings somewhere of like all the Easy Allies being forced to say, it's 2 a.m. on the Hoeg Law Business Law Clock.
Hoeg Law Business Law Clock. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Which was well worth the investment, I got to tell you.
Oh, man, that's funny.
That's so good.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We appreciate it. We'll see you next episode. Take care and goodbye, everybody. Summon Sign is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is written and hosted by me, Brad Ellis. The show is produced by Dustin Furman. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. Summon Sign, along with the rest of Last Stand's media shows, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we are grateful for your kind contribution and generosity to our independent endeavor. Thank you.